All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Thank you guys so much for joining me today and waiting patiently, as always, for the intro to wrap up there. Give a little bit more time for people to file in. I hope everybody's doing well today. We are talking about Fable. We talked briefly, very briefly about it yesterday, but we're going to be talking about Fable. It was delayed, but now we are getting reports as to why it was delayed, technical reasons, but also within these reports are claims that a PS5 version is coming and it may be dropping day and date on PlayStation 5. We're also going to be talking about how the head of Xbox Game Studios discusses Microsoft's multi-platform approach, pretty much says it's good that they're porting games to PlayStation 5. And I also want to have this discussion about why it's suddenly good for Microsoft to be a third-party multi-platform publisher. It just naturally makes me ask the question, like, was it good previously during the Xbox One generation, during the Xbox 360 generation, during the original Xbox generation? Would it be good for PlayStation? We're going to have this conversation. We're talking about the WB Games Catastrophe. WB Games seems to be, they have a really, really bad situation going on. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to be talking about some other topics, maybe a little bit of Ghost of Yotei, maybe a little bit of Monster Hunter Wilds. We have quite a bit to go over and talk about today. What's up, Dragonite? KDV says whole slate. Whole slate. Yeah, well, I'm still being met online with people who are bringing up Lego Horizon Adventures and Spider-Man 2, both being on PC and one of them being on Switch, and they are looking at that and saying that Sony is doing the same thing as Microsoft. And it's like, I really don't know. I don't know how to get it through to you guys that they are not the same thing. I know you want desperately for them to be the same thing, but they are not the same thing. Yeah, so the new PlayStation Plus lineup for Essential was just announced. And I don't think it's looking too good. That's just my personal opinion. But for PlayStation Plus Essential, you're looking at Dragon Age the Veilguard, Sonic Colors Ultimate, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the Cowabunga Collection. Dragon Age Veilguard obviously being the big one here. And man, this game must have been pretty disastrous for EA, right? And that's what's weird is I saw people trying to talk about how the Veilguard is actually, it's doing well. It's not a failure. It's good. And I understand that that game in particular got completely caught up in the culture war on the internet. But the fact that it's already on PlayStation Plus tells you everything you need to know. That game did not do well. Prince G, 24 plus years of mediocrity. Good. TMNT is the big one for you? Well, either way, there's your Essential collection. I'll probably add the games to my library or my collection just because why not? Sorry, but I don't play fantasy games that talk 2025 politics. Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for anybody who paid full price for Dragon Age the Veilguard. I mean, not completely sorry, because it's not like it's like 2 months later or something. What month did Dragon Age come out? I think it was November, right? I mean, it's pretty quick. It's a pretty quick turnaround to get it, into PlayStation Plus. You platinumed it, and you could have saved the money. Man. Well, yeah, I am. I have been noticing that people are not too thrilled with the PlayStation Plus Essential games that we've been getting. So we'll see if Sony ends up improving that. But guys, listen, before we dive into any of these topics, I want to take a moment to ask you to please hit that like button. We're 3 likes away from hitting 50. If you want to help the stream, if you want to help the channel, hit the like button. When do I think we're going to see Ghost of Yotei? I mean, I have to imagine we're going to see it within the next 3 months. It's coming out this year, so we probably don't have to wait that long to see Ghost of Yotei. I would say maybe like May, around that time would be I think that's a good guess. But yeah, guys, hit that like button if you haven't already. It helps the streams. It lets me know you enjoy the content. There are a couple of ways you can support the channel, the content, and the community. You can consider becoming a channel member. You gain access to exclusive perks. You can gift memberships. If we hit 25 members today, we will feed Boss some treats and Luna as well. You can drop a super chat, ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It helps tremendously. And there's also a direct donation link pinned at the top of the chat as well. So there are multiple ways you can help support the content. I say this because we are completely fan funded. You guys make this possible here on the channel, not just with the videos, but with the streams and the members content. We are fan funded. So a big thank you to anybody who supports the channel directly. Literally couldn't do it without you. Let's talk about Fable. Well, actually, let's talk about Ghost of Yotei first. Neo, you're saying probably the rumored showcase / state of play this summer. Is it concerning that we're getting Yotei this year, but we've only seen one trailer so far? No, I don't think it's concerning. I don't think so. I think that what we are seeing with Ghost of Yotei is just the new way that Sony likes to market their games. Well, to be honest, it's not really just Sony, right? We have to understand that when it comes to the way Sony allows their studios to handle their games, it seems that the studios have some control to some degree over when they want to announce games, how frequently they want to talk about it. Sony doesn't seem to be as hands-on as they used to be. But ultimately, Sony does have control over when they want to show their new games, when they want to release games, and how much they want to market them leading up to the launch. But I think that Sony is going to take a similar approach that they did with Astrobot. I think that it's just going to be extended. So Astrobot had a 3-month window, basically, where the game was announced at the May State of Play, or I think it was the last day of May. So basically June. June State of Play comes out September. I think we're going to see that, but just slightly extended, where it's announced at a September State of Play, and then the marketing ramps up maybe in like June or July, and it comes out. Or you know what? Maybe the marketing ramps up in like April and May, and it comes out in like July or August. I could see that happening. So less than a year from time from announced to release. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen with Ghost of Yotei. There is always the possibility it could get delayed, but Sony did reiterate to their shareholders that, you know, this game is coming this year. This game and Death Stranding 2 are both coming in 2025. So, you know, obviously they're going to say that no matter what, but I think it's going to land. Poopy Snoopy with the super chat says, will we have to deal with period pain in Yotei? I'm going to assume no, Poopy Snoopy. No, I don't think that's going to be a gameplay feature or a mechanic. Could you imagine if it was? Could you just imagine that? Imagine the internet's reaction to Sucker Punch making that announcement. What a strange super chat, Poopy Snoopy. What a strange super chat. But I appreciate it nonetheless. It could have been worse. I've read worse. I absolutely have read worse. But no, I do not think you have to worry about that being a gameplay feature in Ghost of Yotei. Yeah, JMR says, of course, naturally, JMR says that sounds like something Kojima would do. Yeah, we'll leave that stuff to Kojima. Neo says you're asking the wrong questions, man. It's like, yeah, I can imagine Poopy Snoopy has one opportunity to ask Sucker Punch just one question about Ghost of Yotei, and he like panics, and that's the one he asks. And they're like, what? Poopy Snoopy follows it up with another super chat saying, would be representative and inclusive. That is true. That is true. There are other ways to do that, though. There are other ways to achieve that. You know, in all seriousness, one of the things that they're going to have to, I think, do for Ghost of Yotei compared to Ghost of Tsushima is Ghost of Tsushima, I think, had an amazing balance of here's the open world, here's the side quests, here's the main story, and here's just kind of like the exploration factor. I think it's going to be kind of challenging for Sucker Punch to truly differentiate those things from Tsushima. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say here is, do we expect when we play Ghost of Yotei, when it comes to how we explore and how we approach the side content, you know, you would find, you know, chase the foxes, pet the foxes, you would do the haikus. Do you think they're just going to basically take all that and just do it again in Yotei? Or are we thinking that they're going to really change it up and kind of make the stuff that Atsu, I think that's the name of the new main character, what she does completely different from the stuff that Jin was doing in Ghost of Tsushima? This is one of the questions I have about this, because there's no doubt that there's going to be a lot of similarities, obviously, like the basic template of this is a Ghost game, but I just wonder how similar it's going to be. You'd ask them why the graphics look like a PS4 game. Are they going to release it on PS4 too? You think so? I mean, I get where you're coming from. Like, all these games we see, they do look like PS4 games because games on the PS4 looked amazing. But I would expect that when we see Ghost of Yotei, like when we are playing it, specifically on a PS5 Pro, we will see that, oh, this looks much better. This looks much better than Ghost of Tsushima did on the PS4 Pro, or even Ghost of Tsushima on the PS5 with the director's cut. Booby Snooper, you're saying the open world was dead in the first one? This should be better. I don't think the open world was dead per se. I mean, I feel like the open world in Ghost of Tsushima, I think it was appropriate. Like, there wasn't too much going on at any one time. I will say the one thing that did get a little bit repetitive in Ghost of Tsushima, and I feel like this was Sucker Punch's way of trying to make sure that you always kind of had something to do when you were like traveling from point A to point B, or if you were, you know, if you were going to, I guess, try to do side stuff or just explore, they would always have different groups of enemies just kind of walking, and you could avoid them, you could go around them, but it was just like, do you want to fight these guys? Like, do you want to just stop and challenge these guys, or what? I do wonder if they're going to try to have more, I guess you could say, organic kind of moments that crop up as you're traveling that aren't just one-dimensional per se. I mean, you know, you come across the foxes, you come across the birds, and you follow the birds and stuff like that. I do think that stuff will continue, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But in terms of like interacting with other people and just kind of having things happen randomly, I wonder if they're really going to try to ramp that up, or if they're basically just going to kind of keep it as it was in Ghost of Tsushima. I don't feel like Ghost of Tsushima's open world was dead. I do just feel like you could tell that there's room for improvement. And I do wonder if that's what we're going to see. It is worth noting, and I covered this in the video that I released earlier today, it is worth noting that Brian Fleming, the creative director of Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotei, he did say that they're looking to kind of really iterate very significantly on what they did with Ghost of Tsushima, obviously in terms of graphics, but also technically and with storytelling. So there's just so much we still don't know about Yotei, and it's hard not to think about it because, yeah, I mean, it's still early in the year, but it's going to be March very soon. And, before we know it, 1/4 of the year is over already. You have to wonder when we're going to see more of this. Kareem Ali with a $5 super chat says, "Hi, MBG, how's everything? I hope Yotei has better side quests than Tsushima had so many repetitive quests and they weren't worth it." I would imagine that that's something that they're likely, because what we have to understand about Ghost of Yotei is that the template for the type of game that they're making was already there. If you were listening to that one-on-one with, I think it was the director of Team Asobi as well as the director at Sucker Punch, he was saying that one of the struggles they had prior to Ghost of Tsushima was really kind of settling on what type of game they want to make, and they had this kind of struggle. The great benefit for Ghost of Yotei is because Ghost of Tsushima was such a success, they already knew what they were going to do next. Another, not, it could have been a Ghost of Tsushima 2 where you pick up as Jin again, but they basically said, we're going to do another Ghost game. So we have the basic template. So that means this entire time, they had all of this time to, as he said, iterate and basically look at every aspect of Ghost of Tsushima and anything that they felt like could have used improvement, like what you're saying here, like maybe some of the side quests, maybe make them a little bit less repetitive, a little bit more unique. They very likely have had the time to do that. So obviously I can't say for sure because we haven't seen the game, but I think there's a good chance. I think there's a good chance that that's exactly what we're going to see. We have another super chat, and Kareem. So, by the way, I'm doing well, man. Thank you for asking, and thank you for the super chat. Michael Lynch with another $5 super chat says, "Lost my dad yesterday morning. Say some prayers for me and the family. Love this channel. It's a good distraction. Keep fighting the butterscotches." Well, I'm so sorry to hear that, Michael. Chat prayers for Michael Lynch here and his father's passing yesterday. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. But I do appreciate what you're saying here. I'm glad that, my channel and what I'm talking about can be some type of distraction. I've been there. I know what that's like. And so hang in there, Michael. Stay strong. Prayers for your father and, yeah, man, and your family and your loved ones. But, even still, you dropping a super chat to say that and to say to keep fighting the butterscotches. We have to, Michael. We have to. Sometimes it gets hazy out here, Sometimes I lose sight. But we always got to keep fighting the butterscotches. So, Michael, thank you so much for that super chat, man. And just stay strong, bro. Stay strong. We also have Poopy Snoopy. He says Sony should release it at the same time as GTA 6. Ooh, I hope they don't make that mistake. That would be pretty bad for Ghost of Yotei. I think, if anything, Sony's trying to do the opposite. I think the reason why we're not hearing too much about it, why we're not getting any dates, it's because they're still waiting. Like, when is GTA 6 dropping? Because we don't want to release our game anywhere near it. Well, the clock is ticking. We only know so little about GTA 6, but the one thing we do know is that Take-Two Interactive reaffirmed that they're targeting holiday 2025 or fall 2025. Mrs. MBG is in the chat saying, like the stream, guys. Yeah, if you're enjoying the stream, if you want to let me know you enjoy the streams, and you just want to help it out, take a moment, hit that like button. We're at 70 likes. Let's push, excuse me. Let's push for 100 likes. Let's do it, guys. I mean, listen, when it comes to GTA 6's release date, talking about Ghost of Yotei, talking about Death Stranding 2 on the beach, I think if Sony wants to play it safe, they should probably be targeting a summer release for both games. I think if they're trying to play it as safe as they possibly can, do not release either of those games in October, November, or even December. I think you want to target June, July, August for both of those titles. Now, I don't know if that's what's actually going to happen, but yeah, man, the last thing that Sony wants to do is accidentally announce the release date of Ghost of Yotei or Death Stranding 2 on the beach, and it's like the second week of October, and then we find out like a month later that that's exactly when GTA 6 is releasing. I mean, they would delay it or move it up, one or the other, right? I'm sorry to hear that, Broccoli Rob. Very sorry to hear that. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about the loss that some of you guys are experiencing. Well, I do hope that if anything, these streams can be just a little bit of a distraction, you know? Would the games be ready by the summer? That's the question. That is the question. And I don't have the answer to that. Hopefully, right? Hopefully. Moonshot, you're saying what just happened with Monolith, and especially the Nemesis system, is such a loss for gaming as a whole. I'm more upset about that than the canceled PS5. I'm assuming you're talking about, well, I don't know, when you say canceled PS5. Oh, I think what you're trying to say here, Moonshot, is the canceled PS5 game, Wonder Woman. You're more upset about the situation with the Nemesis system and Monolith being just scrapped entirely. Oh, here we go. You say here, Moonshot with another direct donation says live service games, scattershot approach. Let me read them back to back because I feel like they're supposed to be tethered together so we can get this clearly. So Moonshot says what just happened with Monolith and especially the Nemesis system is such a loss for gaming as a whole. I'm more upset about that than the canceled PS5 live service games scattershot approach. I can't believe they patent a revolutionary game mechanic like that system just to kill it. I'm crashing out. I mean, I can't blame you, Moonshot. I can't blame you, dude. Yeah, we're going to talk somewhat extensively about the WB game situation because it's really bad, man. Like, I don't want to be hyperbolic about it, but yeah, the situation with WB Games, it is a catastrophe. That's why I titled it that. It's legitimately a catastrophe. The Nemesis system is patented until 2036, and WB Games can choose to renew it. And if they choose to renew it, it's over, dude. But yeah, 2036. Michael Lynch with another $5 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. You're saying, Mrs. MBG, when you get your own channel going, you should call it Kitty Corner. Kitty Corner. That's not bad, Michael. It's not bad. Mrs. MBG likes it. I think she settled on, I forget. Mrs. MBG, you have to let us know. What did you decide to call it? Although Kitty Corner is good. Maybe that could be a runner-up. Warner Bros. Is so out of touch that game devs totally just make a Nemesis system like that and they wouldn't do anything. Well, dude, I played, what was it? Shadow of Mordor. That's the first one, right? What was the sequel called? Shadow of War, I think. But I played the first one, and that Nemesis system was genuinely unique and very well done. We haven't seen anything like it. And it's one of these things where that Nemesis system should be available to use. Like, that should be something that any game developer and any studio should be able to use. But this is the problem with them being able to patent video game mechanics. Now, the studio is shut down. The game, that being Wonder Woman, that was going to use that mechanic has also been canceled. And there's no games on the horizon from WB that seem to indicate they're going to be using that. So now, all we really can do is look at the fact that, yeah, the only chance of studios outside of WB ever being able to use this mechanic, not until 2036 or after that, right? It would have to be after that. So I don't like anything about this, man. I don't like anything about it. I don't like the fact that they shut down Monolith. I don't like the fact that the Wonder Woman game was canceled, although I can't say too much about that because who knows what was going on with that game behind the scenes. But I especially don't like the fact that the studio that came up with the Nemesis system no longer exists. It's still patented, and it's just going to be locked down by WB, and nobody can use it. It's unbelievable. It's actually kind of unbelievable when you think about it. What a waste. We have Blake Wilson with a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, hey, MBG, I think Rockstar is waiting by until they are 99% confident what the release date is. So that way, when the next trailer drops, they can give us a new trailer and the release date. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that, Blake. I think that what Rockstar wants to do, we could be wrong here, but I think what Rockstar wants to do is they want to just they're going to, I think, have a shorter marketing window than maybe expected. Like, it's clear they're not going to have like a 2-year long marketing cycle unless the game gets delayed, right? Then it could extend quite a bit. But they're not going to kick off the marketing for GTA 6. At least I'm convinced they're not going to kick off the marketing for GTA 6 until, like what you're saying, they are absolutely sure that they are hitting that release date, right? If there's any chance at all it could slip, they're not going to kick it off. So the fact that they haven't kicked off the marketing yet might indicate that there's still that possibility, but it also could just be timing, right? They want to have a shorter, maybe 5-month marketing cycle. But within that 5 months, they are going to bombard you. And I think that the best way you kick off a marketing cycle like that is a new trailer number 2, the elusive GTA 6 trailer number 2, and you show not everything, but a lot. You show a lot, and you end it by also giving that release date. And from that moment forward, it's just a clear indicator that the runway is clear, it's happening, nothing's going to get in the way of it. And from this moment forward, you can just expect a barrage of marketing month over month. I do think that this is likely how they're trying to approach it, because the one thing that we can say for certain is the amount of money that will go into this marketing push is going to be massive. So they got to make sure that when they go for that marketing push, they can't risk losing that money due to the potential of a delay or something like that. Or you could make the argument that maybe they don't need to market it that much, that the game will sell itself. We could make that argument as well, absolutely. But Blake, I think you might be on to something here. We have Poopy Snoopy with another super chat, and I think Moonshot also dropped another direct donation. But Poopy Snoopy says, Rockstar will have a release date already. This is hype for them, keeping people waiting. LOL, they don't give an F. It could be that too. It's one of these things where it's like a coin flip. Like, are they holding on to it because they know that, like, the longer they wait, the higher the anticipation gets? And they're getting free marketing by kind of keeping people waiting in a sense. Or the other side of that coin, is it what we just talked about, right? Is it the fact that there is still a slight possibility that we shouldn't kick off the marketing yet because from what we're hearing from Rockstar, it sounds like they're crunching. You know what I mean? They're crunching, and they might end up needing another 3 months or something like that. It's difficult to determine right now because we haven't heard anything, even from like insiders, right? There isn't even like rumors about GTA 6. At least, I mean, there are rumors, but I mean from really credible sources. Like nobody truly credible is saying anything meaningful about GTA 6. MBG, people cry when a game is teased for too long. Then they cry when a game isn't announced until it's close to release. Lose. This is MBG says, boss doesn't want to sleep on his cat tower because I vacuumed it. I don't know. It's weird. I guess, yeah, every time I vacuum it, I'm doing something to it scent-wise. But he is sleeping. He's sleeping on this chair next to me with the Helldivers hoodie. He'll wake up. I'm not waking him up right now because once I do, he's going to get all rambunctious. And look, right now we haven't gotten any memberships. Okay, so we got to hit 25 if we're gonna make that a reality for boss here. I don't want to get him all worked up, not be able to deliver for him. He likes when it smells like him. Neo says, hot take, I think the longer they wait, the lower the anticipation gets due to all the people going crazy with every possible conspiracy. It's getting annoying. Dude, I saw Moonshot. I'm going to read your last chat here in just a moment, but I got to say, I saw a post that went viral on X, and it got like 10 million views, and it was made to look like an official Rockstar Games post, and it said, join us for GTA 6 trailer number 2 on February 30th. And I went to go check the replies, and it was genuinely disturbing. Genuinely disturbing and unsettling how many people like thought it was real. And I'm like, guys, this can't be happening. Like, this can't be happening. Read it again. A little bit slower this time. What's up, Titus? February 30th, GTA 6 trailer number 2. And, I mean, stuff like that is done all the time to kind of mess with people and screw with people, but it's just more, I don't mind people joking around and trolling and all that stuff. That's expected. What I do mind is seeing more and more people are like going, like, I don't know, man. It's almost like people are like, yeah, let's just run with this. Like, what are you talking about? There's nothing to run with. That's not a real date. February 30th doesn't exist. It's wild, man. It's absolutely wild to see what people are doing out here with GTA 6, bro. People making content off of it. And Titus comes in. Titus comes in and drops a 5 bomb on you guys. 5 memberships gifted. He's trying to do his part for boss here. Titus, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff. I see MRPD was gifted a membership as well. I don't know if he's here in the chat, but thank you, Titus. I'm going to add that to the counter. And before I do that, Moonshot says 2036. MBG, I'm crashing out, bro. I didn't even care about Wonder Woman. It was the Nemesis system that had my attention. Oof. Yeah, dude, I'm not kidding. It's actually 2036. I looked into it. Oh, there you are, MRPD. There you go. Another month. Thanks to Titus. Yeah, it is unbelievable that the Nemesis system, like, for all intents and purposes, the Nemesis system is just gone. I mean, maybe it could come back in like a future Rocksteady game or something. And Titus Crow comes in and drops another 5 memberships on you guys. Another 5 bomb from Titus, keeping the member train going. Boss is aware. And then Dreadful 83. Dreadful 83's like, we got to keep it going, man. And somehow Goat Gaming got a membership. No. How could this be? And Mini Tom Official, bro. 5 bomb after 5 bomb, bringing us to 20 members just like that within seconds. Within seconds, a massive shout out to all you guys dropping member gifts, getting a full-blown train going. They want to get us to 25 so we can feed Boss and Luna some treats. Amazing stuff, guys.
Appreciate it.
I got to give you a different soundbite. Which soundbite should I do? We could do Crazy Arnold because you guys are going crazy. Thank you guys so much. And that's why I was waiting, because Hellbound 1981, and he dunks it, bro. Hellbound 1981 with another 5 memberships gifted, taking us to the 25, getting us all the way there. And then Dreadful 83 with another 5 bomb. You guys are going crazy. Bro, we need some W's in the chat. They are going crazy with the 5 bombs, bringing us up to 30 members. 30 members. Guys, if you are not a channel member and you want to know how to receive a membership gift from these generous gifters, click any of the member icons at the top of the chat. Any of the gift icons, it will ask you to opt in to receive a membership gift, and it'll give you a chance. We do get a lot of membership gifts here. Boss knows. Perfect timing. He just woke up. So let me update that. Thank you guys so much for dropping so many member gifts. Really, really appreciate that support. Like I said, we are fan funded. I can only do what I do here because you guys make it possible. And somehow Mini Tom Official still hasn't gotten a membership gift. But Goat Gaming did and says I'm absolutely gobsmacked. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. And I'm sorry, Josh. I know, I'm sorry. Josh is still crashing out. All right.
Boasty, read me. It's time to feed the beast.
Here we go. Oh, Luna's in here too. He's been waiting. So, Boss definitely thanks you guys. He definitely thanks you guys because he has been waiting patiently to get those treats. And we have Dreadful 83, a member for 17 months. And he just dropped some member gifts as well. Says, just no more excitement for Xbox games. That's all I want. You want, Dreadful, you're saying you want no more excitement for Xbox games. This is interesting. He wants the opposite. He wants less excitement for Xbox games. I mean, I guess it depends, right? It depends on which Xbox games we're talking about. Luna, chill. Chill. You're next. I promise. Poopy Snoopy with a super chat says June or July before Rockstar shows anything else. I mean, yeah, it's possible, dude. It's possible they could wait that long. I mean, that is kind of the normal time for developers to start showing more stuff, but I don't know. It's going to be a long wait. It's going to be a long wait. By the way, we are 2 likes away from hitting 100, guys. We are 2 likes away from hitting 100. Pragmatic Cat says Xbox, and Xbox, I guess. Matthew, you're saying you got your disk drive for your PS5 Pro finally? About time, dude. Yeah. I'm telling you, these disk drives should not be as scarce as they seem. They should not be as scarce as they seem. I don't like what's going on there. It makes me worried that, like, when Sony announces the PlayStation 6, they're going to be like, yeah, you can buy the disk drive separately, but it's just, like, never going to be available. Hippostatic U says, smash the like button. July is the perfect time for a 2026 release. Well, I'm sure we're going to continue to hear about GTA 6, not from Rockstar, not from Take-Two Interactive, but just we're going to hear the buzz. We're going to continue to hear it get louder and louder. I mean, it is kind of annoying that some people, I think, again, you see something like February 30th, and then people run with it, and it's like, what are we doing here, guys? But Mrs. MBG is asking me to plug Morning with the Misses for new members. Yeah, guys, listen, if you just got gifted a membership, I do want to get better at letting people know what they are gaining access to. Go check out the members' content. Not now, after the stream, after you're done watching the regular content. There's there's a whole slew of members only content you can check out. Morning with the Misses. We're going to be doing another one on Friday. And you also have the members lounge. We're going to be doing a members lounge today. So you have access to that as well. PlayStation has them on the store right now. Okay, that's good. Every time I check, they're not available. And people like let me know. They're like, oh, it's back in stock. Come on, Luna. Luna's getting her fill too. But yeah, people let me know when they're back in stock. And then I go check like a couple of hours later and they're already gone. I'm like, geez, man. It really seems like Sony's just trying to produce these things for the, for however many people want them. And then they're like kind of hoping they hit a limit, I guess. But I guess it does kind of benefit Sony, right? Because the margins on a disc drive have to be pretty good, I would imagine. But let's talk about. So Dreadful83 says just no more excitement for Xbox games. Well, we do have some Xbox topics to go over and talk about, specifically with Fable, and also the head of Xbox Studios talking about how porting these games to PlayStation 5 is a good thing. And I have something I kind of want to talk about. I want to talk about it. What I really might be saying is I might be ranting about it. I'm not sure. But let's start with Fable. Ray, you're saying then just buy it now. Well, see, that's the thing. Before we move on to Fable, when it comes to talking about the PlayStation 5 disc drive and, what's going to go on with the PlayStation 6 and how they're going to handle that, my assumption, and this is just an assumption, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right about this. The way Sony's going to handle it with the PlayStation 6 is the same way they're handling it with the PS5 Pro. They're going to announce the PS6. It's going to be digital only. And they're going to make it clear that you can buy the disc drive separately, or if you already own a disc drive, like if you have one right now on your PS5 Pro or PS5 Slim, that will be able to attach to the PlayStation 6. I'm pretty sure it's going to work the same way. I would be surprised if they did it any other way. So it's like if you're somebody who wants to play it like completely safe, if you don't have, like, let's say you have an original PS5 right now, right? You don't have the Slim, you don't have the Pro, and you're not going to upgrade to the Pro. I'm not saying you should jump the gun and just go buy a disc drive right now, but just be aware that the disc drive you see right now on sale at PlayStation Direct or in other retailers, that might be the same one, like the same exact. I mean, for all we know, the PlayStation 6 might also be white and have plates just like the 5 and the Pro. So just keep your eye out for that. Well, I mean, it's going to be some time where we got years, so I'm not going to tell you to rush out and buy a drive right now. Do you think the PlayStation 6 is going to have 2 SKUs? I would love that to be the case, but I just don't think it's going to be. I don't think so. They're going to make a new disc drive for sure. Dude. All right. You know what? You're probably right about that. At the very least, the way it should work. Maybe, man, if Sony does this, it's going to be such a bad look. But the way it should work is if you have a PS5 Slim or a PS5 Pro with a disc drive, you buy a PlayStation 6. The PlayStation 6 does not have a disc drive. I don't think they would do this, but maybe they will include. No, they're not going to do that. I was going to say maybe they would include like the side panel for the disc drive with it. So if you do put a disc drive on it, you already have the plate to put over it. What they probably would do is sell it separately. Like, how if you go on PlayStation Direct right now, you can buy plates for the PS5 Slim. They'll do that, except you could just literally buy the disc drive plate. But yeah, what they're probably going to do is be like, buy a whole new drive. which would suck. That would actually, dude, that would be the worst thing for them to do. Will it be more expensive? I would hope not. But I don't know. I'm just assuming everything for the PlayStation 6 is going to be very expensive. That's just my assumption, you know? That's what I'm going in with. Or that's the attitude, I should say, that I'm going in with. Poopy Snoopy with a super chat says they'll 100% make a new disc drive. It's about the money. That would just be so... Like, I would have to do a whole rant video or something or stream about that because it's like that would be so... I don't know if malicious is the right word, but just aggressive in like, are you serious? Like, guys, you've been selling a disc drive separately. It's a freaking disc drive. You know what I mean? Like, I think what Sony would do, I think what they would do, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I think if they're smart, what they would do is you can move your current disc drive over to the PlayStation 6, but you do need to buy the plate. So it's like, okay, all right. I think that's kind of fair in a way. Not completely fair. The best way would be if you could just buy a disc model PlayStation 6, and then maybe they'll do that. They'll just have a bundle. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I do just wonder if they're like, listen, if you're like one of the few people left by the time the PlayStation 6 comes out where you need to have a physical drive or you need physical discs. No, see that? No. See, the more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm backing up on it because it's like backwards compatibility, dude. Backwards compatibility, right? Like, surely they're not going to make it this complicated. I don't know, but then I look at what they did with the PS5 Pro and it's like, you sure about that? I'm not sure about anything at this point. I don't feel sure about anything regarding the PlayStation 6, to be honest. Poopy Snoopy with another chat says, be like, why make a new PlayStation 6 controller when we have one? Well, talking about the DualSense, I think they're going to have a DualSense too. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I mean, we saw certain patents where they're like, it'll get hot or cold or whatever, or you can smell things. I don't know if I like where this is going. I'm going to be honest. Not really sure that I like where this is going, but I have no doubt that one of the biggest selling points for the PlayStation 6 will, like, that is the one thing I'm going to retract my previous statement. There is one thing I feel sure about with the PlayStation 6, and that is the DualSense 2 is going to be a major selling point because look at how well it worked for the PS5 with the DualSense that we have now. But I'm just not really sure. I mean, what could they really add to the DualSense 2 to make it that much better? Hanzo saying Poopy Snoopy is insane. Saying he says, no offense, bro, you're just nuts. That's the madness. But MBG said just a few minutes ago, it's years off and we just don't know and will not know for a while now. I mean, yeah, listen, I like speculating about the PlayStation 6 a little bit, but at the end of the day, dude, like it's still so early and it is years away that the PlayStation 6 could, and Sony's approach to it could be vastly, vastly different from anything I speculate right now. I think they're still 100% focused on the PS5. Titus Crow with a super chat says, more you buy, the more you save. Yeah, Titus, I'm curious to see what else Sony has to sell us for the rest of the gen. It's not that far off, 2027. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it, right? Because like on one hand, it kind of feels like, yeah, that's just a couple years away. But on the other hand, you think about everything that could occur within those 2 to 3 years, and you realize who knows what could change, right? A lot could change is what I'm trying to say. And I think that it's the changes that occur in between the time you're waiting, that makes it feel so much longer. Like, for example, if I ask you to think about the first month you had your PS5 or the first month leading up to the PS5 launch, right? Was it like October going into November? And then I want you to think about everything that happened with PlayStation over the last 4 years since that time, right? And you realize, like, wow, a lot has happened. A lot has changed. Some things have certainly remained the same or, haven't changed that much, but things are getting kind of crazy out here. That like, to me, that's kind of the big thing about the PlayStation 6 and just next generation in general is things are getting kind of crazy. And the implications of this craziness for the next gen consoles, sometimes I question if Sony even really knows. I've said over and over again, and I will continue to sound like a broken record until we get the official announcement, but I do not envy the position that Sony is in right now with the PlayStation 6 because they have some very, very difficult decisions they have to make. And they very likely don't know what the right decision is. I don't feel confident that I know what the right decision is. Like, if it was up to me and how to handle the PlayStation 6, I don't know that I would feel confident at all that I know the right decision to make. But yeah, there's a lot on the line, dude. There will be a lot on the line. But again, a lot could change between now and 2027. We did talk about that, Novinzer. We mentioned it earlier, Dragon Age the Veilguard coming to PlayStation Plus in March. Basically, what I said was I'm kind of surprised a little bit, but I think it confirms that game really did very poorly for EA. Like, EA is trying to make any money they can off of Dragon Age right now, the Veilguard. Wait, hold on. What was Hanzo saying? He says, Mrs. MBG, I will one day return to morning with the missus. Yeah, hopefully we can get you a membership gift. Or hopefully you can become a member, but if that's not an option, hopefully we can get you a gift before Friday morning. You think a lot of people go digital by default? Yeah. Do you think they won't fire Herman at the moment, so there's no more bad press? No, I don't think. No. Sony wouldn't do that. I don't think Sony Sony obviously does care to a degree about how much bad press they get at one time, but if they have to let somebody go or they're just not the right person, I don't think they're going to hold back out of fear of how that may look. Ahmed says he highly regrets buying Veilguard at launch. I do wonder right now how many people are feeling regret. What do I think about Kojima's next movie / game for PS6? I read that weird. You're talking about Fizzant? James, the camera guy, says membership is grayed out when trying. If YouTube is not letting you become a member or gift memberships, you might be on a what are they called? It has something to do with your account. Like, you might have to have a different account or go on a different account or create a different account for YouTube. I forget what they're called. Somebody will remind me. But yeah, people do have that problem sometimes. A branded account I think that's what it's called. If you have a branded account, I don't think it'll let you become a channel member to any brand account. I see what you're doing, Drum Man. I see what you're doing. You want me to drop some? Well, if we get another 5 bomb, if we get another 5 memberships gifted, I'll drop 5 more of my own. If we hit 50 memberships, I'll drop another 5. So you have the opportunity for me to drop 10 membership gifts for you guys. So I'll put that out there. All right. We hit 35. I'll drop 5, get us to 40. Somebody drops 10 more, I'll drop another 5, get us to 55. But yeah, got on a bit of a side tangent there. Bit of a side tangent regarding the PlayStation 6. We'll continue to talk about the PlayStation 6 as we get, go through 2025 and certainly going into 2026, but no rumors. It's all quiet right now regarding next gen. So we'll see. Imagine buying a $70 game and then it launches in the PlayStation Plus for free before you beat it. That is kind of wild. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about the idea that somebody bought, somebody's out there. They bought Dragon Age, the Veilguard on PlayStation 5 full price at launch and they just haven't beaten it yet. Maybe they're just taking their a really long time to get through it, and then you find out oh yeah, now it's on PlayStation Plus. Halfway to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's Platinum, really? Already, Meet the Cheater. That's quite impressive. That's actually impressive, dude, because I remember hearing that the Platinum for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is 200 hours or something. So nice, dude. Ray, you're saying you have a feeling that the PS5 will be longer and the PlayStation 6 won't release until after the next election due to tariffs. We did talk about that in a previous stream, how Sony might feel like they have to extend this generation, and that could happen. That could happen. That's a real possibility. I don't know that it's likely, but it is a possibility. So would it be the worst thing in the world? I don't know. I mean, it would make me feel like I can get a lot of use out of my PS5 Pro before I upgrade to the PlayStation 6. I can say that. Kane Z7 with the super chat says, Part 1, I think it's getting harder and harder being a physical media fan lately. I'm waiting for Atelier Yumia, I don't know if I'm saying that right, that releases in March. And then you say here with Part 2, but the physical media won't release here in Brazil. So if I want the disc, I'll end up paying for 2 games. So I'll end up just buying digital. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to what it's like in Brazil. I don't live there, but what you're saying here, I mean, I just wonder when that's going to become the norm everywhere, right? It is, I'm not trying to be like a doomer here, but it really is starting to kind of feel like, it feels like more and more people and more companies are kind of all getting together and being like, yeah, forget physical, bro. And Atelier, that's how you say that? I'm just going to assume I said it wrong and just leave it. Just leave it be. But when it comes to physical media, I don't think like I said, I don't think it's ever going to go away. And the situation that you're in, Kane, I mean, that sounds pretty garbage. The closest thing I feel like I can say in regards to this, it's not exactly the same, but Metal Gear Solid Delta, the situation with this game is annoying me because we just found out that there's going to be a digital deluxe version of Metal Gear Solid Delta, where if you buy the digital deluxe version for $80, you get access to the game 3 days early. You get it August 25th instead of August 28th. I want to buy the game physically. And there's no option. If you buy the game physically, you just have to settle for getting it on the 28th. And this is the type of stuff that is very annoying, where it's like, I don't know, man. I understand why they can't really do that for the physical version, but it sucks that it feels like more and more, if you want to be somebody who wants to opt in for physical media, you kind of you're going to be punished a little bit for it. Not severely, but just a little bit. And I get it that it's like the majority of people don't really care for physical media anymore. It's, most people are digital now, so you have to just accept that you're not the majority. You're the minority now. And yeah, that's fine. But I guess, I don't know. It, like, for Metal Gear Solid Delta, I do wonder if I'm going to break for that. I think I'm going to break for that. I think that's what's going to happen. I think I'm going to end up buying that game twice. I can already see it. I can already see that I'm going to end up caving, knowing that if I just pay the $80 right now on my PS5 Pro, I can play Metal Gear Solid Delta right now. I know I'm going to cave to that. And then at some point, I'm going to eventually be like, man, I really want to have this game physically. And I hate that. I hate that Konami knows that and they're exploiting that. Never buy digital, send a message. Eric, you're saying you'll be sticking with physical discs until you can't any longer. That's my approach with it. I mean, I tweeted at the official Sony Bend account where they posted the $10 upgrade for Days Gone Remastered. And I said to them, I don't know if they read it. I don't know if their account manager read it, but I said, I really think you guys should reconsider making this digital only and doing a physical release, because I was saying that I think there are maybe not a lot, but a decent amount of people, a justifiable amount of people who would pay the full $50. I just like spit all over my mic. Who would pay the full $50 for Days Gone Remastered for PS5 to add it to their collection. I do think that this is kind of a no-brainer where people were replying to what I said and they were like, well, is it going to be justifiable for them, to manufacture and produce those discs and those game cases if it's only a very, very small amount of people buying it physically? I think the answer to that is absolutely yes, because they're going to pay full price for the game. Like, I'm telling you, there are people, and I know that some might hear this and be like, well, that's kind of dumb, but it's just a collector's mindset. There are people who probably could do the $10 upgrade, but if there was a physical PS5 version, they will pay $50 for it. I'm one of these people. I know we're out there. And I just don't understand if it's like, listen, if your studio is trying to make the most amount of money, and let's face it, Ben Studio is probably not, this is the most amount of money they're going to make for a long time. Why not capitalize on that? Why not just, here you go, guys. We're not going to manufacture a lot of them. Maybe just have people pre-order it and only satisfy those pre-orders, only print the amount that's pre-ordered, and then really that's it. I don't understand why they wouldn't do this. Chris Brown with a super chat says, PlayStation Portal gets me to choose digital. I need to stop. I mean, that's understandable. Yeah. I still don't have a PlayStation Portal, and so I guess it's not something I really thought about. But yeah, that's I guess I haven't. I haven't really thought about that. That right now it's just the PlayStation Portal. It's just streaming, and for some people like you, Chris, it is influencing their purchasing habits when it comes to buying PlayStation 5 games, physical or digital. But I feel like that's going to maybe increase substantially, right? The amount of people, I should say, that are now thinking, you know what, maybe I will just buy all digital, because there will eventually be, assuming that the rumors are true, a dedicated PlayStation handheld that you can play. From what we heard, Sony's eventually going to try to release a portable PlayStation 5. And yeah, even I think about that, right? I think if I bought this future PlayStation handheld, all the games I choose to buy physically, I'm kind of, it's not that I'm locked out of it, but I have to choose, right? Well, I guess no, you are locked out of it, because they're not going to give you a free digital copy with the physical version if you buy it. They're not going to do that. So yeah, you're basically locking yourself out of being able to access these games. And it is stuff like that that does make me kind of think a little bit like, in the future, there may actually be more benefits to going digital than going physical. Because right now, the only real benefit for me would be convenience factor. And that's not that significant for me. For some people, it's a big deal, but for me, it's not that significant. I'd much rather have physical, and I don't mind switching the discs out. If anything, I like doing that. So if, let's say by like 2028, 2029, there's like, here's the new PlayStation Portable, and it's literally a portable PlayStation 5, I'm going to be kind of like annoyed in a way where it's like, wait, if I buy this, any games I don't have digitally, I'm not going to be able to play. Unless they have a disc drive attachment for the portable. No, I'm just kidding. Could you imagine that? Sony wants to find a way to still sell you a disc drive. It's going to be some massive, like, portable PlayStation 5. It's just a PS5 with a screen. There already is a portable PS5. I mean, you're right, but I'm talking about natively, like playing games natively in a handheld. Physical games are out of favor with the overwhelming majority of gamers. They will forever be relegated to niche status. No amount of standing on principle will change that reality. I do agree with that. I think that's an accurate assessment. Yeah. Poopy Snoopy with another super chat says here, physical media is the cause of most leaks too. Early copies get stolen all the time. Can see why so many publishers want it to disappear. Look at Assassin's Creed. Yeah, the situation with Assassin's Creed seems kind of wild. People were telling me on my last stream, they were like, bro, I'm seeing people selling physical copies of Assassin's Creed on Facebook Marketplace. And I'm like, what? Yeah. I mean, I think for me, there's some kind of like, because that's the thing. I don't really support physical because I feel like I'm standing on principle. I do feel like it helps. It's like, yeah, I like having that tangible ownership, like real ownership. That is nice. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't engage pretty much with most of my media digitally. I do. I don't collect Blu-rays. I don't collect CDs or vinyl. Like I listen to my music all digitally. I watch all my stuff digitally and I stream it. I mean, it's not to say that I don't own Blu-ray. I do own Blu-rays. I do own physical media, but I don't collect it and I don't go out of my way to seek it anymore. I just kind of have what I've accumulated over years. With games, it's always been different where I have this just kind of this itch in a way. I don't know how else to describe it. I just had this kind of itch that feels like it has to be scratched where it's like, I don't know why. Maybe it is the nostalgia here, but like there's just something valuable to me about getting a game physically. I don't know why. Like I can't even really describe it. I think there are people who understand what I'm saying and they have a similar feeling where it's like there's just something about being able to have a physical copy of a game and just, I don't know, it creates a different feeling. I literally don't know how to describe it. And when I have to, and I know this is a real thing, this is a real phenomenon because because sometimes I have considered, I'm like, maybe I should just buy this game digitally. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? But I realized that like there's something there that holds me back where it's like it just doesn't feel the same. I don't know why. I mean, at the end of the day, the way I engage with it will be the same. Where it's like, dude, you're just going to play the game, like, sure, you can hold the physical case for a little bit and you can hold the disc, and put it in the console and go through that, have that little experience. But let's just face it, when you sit down to play the game, the experience is going to be the same. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. That's why I do question like how much of this is just kind of nostalgia driven where I grew up like that was the way you did it. You got PS1 games, those crappy kind of plastic cases that always broke. But then the PS2 game case, all black with the classic PlayStation logo. And even during the Xbox era with the Xbox 360 games, I had like a physical. I don't know what ended up happening to it, but I did have like a physical 360 game collection at one point. And so there is just kind of, I guess, this nostalgia and also what I've just grown accustomed to, which is, yeah, of course, you buy games physically. That's what you do. But they're trying to get rid of that feeling. You just can't kiss the digital version. You can't. I mean, you can. You could kiss your screen, I guess, but it's just not the same. Apparently, physical media is beginning to get more expensive. Maybe I'll just go digital. No, I don't think I'm going to go all digital or anything like that, but I'm not going to lie. The one thing that makes me rethink things is the idea of a future portable PlayStation that I absolutely would want to buy. Even if I don't use it, like I would find reasons to use it, right? Even if I'm just like using it around the house or whatever, or out back. But like that would change. That would alter my habits, my purchasing habits, and my decision making. It would. Kane Z7 says, I'm not a PC player, so I don't know how the transition was, but now PC players don't have physical media anymore, and soon it will happen to us too. Yeah, it is interesting to think. It is interesting to think that on PC, they don't have physical media at all anymore. I do wonder if that's going to be the end result for all of this, because I've been under the impression, well, if you look at music, you can still buy vinyl and you can even still buy CDs if you want in music. If you look at TV and movies, you can still buy physical. You could still buy DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K Blu-rays. But yeah, in gaming, there is a sector where it's like there was physical media and it literally doesn't exist anymore at all. Nintendo will be here, though, right? Nintendo's still here. Poopy Snoopy with a super chat says, in the future, you buy a case, but it's a digital code inside. Oh, man. To me, that just kind of feels like a waste. I don't think I would be able to do that. Because, like, I could understand why some people would maybe do that, where it's like, I just got to have the box. But it's like, at that point, you're just accumulating useless plastic. You know what I mean? Like they literally can't do anything. It would be like if somebody had game cases for all of their digital games. Oh my God, somebody probably did that. You know, there's somebody in the world where they have like a digital game collection of like 100 games, maybe on like PlayStation or something, and they have like empty custom made game cases or something. It's like, yeah, this is my collection of games. It's like, there's no disc, bro. It's like, yeah, it's on my console. Limited run. Yeah, limited run will still be here. I don't think physical is just going to go away. I think it is in the process of going away. But I think when it gets to the final end point, like the end game here, I think that there will still be enough people, even if it's a small group, but enough companies that want to serve those customers, I guess you could say, that will keep it alive to a degree. Let me just make sure I didn't miss. I'm pretty sure I caught up on all the direct donations. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Give me just a moment. Okay, yeah, we're all caught up there. So, guys, let's move on and talk about Fable a little bit. We discussed it briefly, but we have a couple of new reports. So, yesterday, as we know, Fable was announced to be delayed. That's a weird way to say that. It was announced that Fable's delayed to 2026. Not too relevant to PlayStation until we go over these reports, because it's worth noting that accompanying the delay of Fable, there was also a new podcast where the head of Xbox Game Studios, which I actually forgot, by the way, I forgot that Craig Duncan is the head of Xbox Studios now. So I was like kind of confused, but he used to be the head of Rare, I believe, and he was promoted to the head of Xbox Studios. He was on a podcast yesterday, an official Xbox podcast, and he had some things to say that seemed to indicate not only the obvious, like we can expect more Microsoft titles to be announced to be coming to PS5, which that's not news at this point, but he seems to maybe hint that Fable is going to be one of these games that could be day one, but we also now have rumors from insiders claiming exactly that. Poopy Snoopy, you're saying Sony would prefer you buy from their storefront. Oh, yeah. Yes, they would. I wouldn't be surprised if Sony, for the people that still want to buy physically on PlayStation, even going into the PS6 generation, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony tries to maybe do certain things on PlayStation Direct to kind of encourage people. Like, I don't know if they could do like some kind of reward system or whatever, just some way, maybe like a 5% discount or something, just some way to convince those who are buying physical to buy from PlayStation Direct. Because yeah, that's like the equivalent essentially. I mean, they're still losing a little bit of money, I think, on the manufacturing of it and the shipping and whatnot, but they will get more money ultimately from every person that buys from PlayStation Direct. But if you're saying digitally, like they want you to buy from their digital, like, yeah, that's the end game. Sony, as well as every other storefront owner out there, right? Like they want you to buy digitally from their store. Rashdom V2. Hold on, it looks like okay. Rashdom V2 says, PS5 solo, like FF games, I go physical. Multiplayer with a lot of DLC like Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, and Call of Duty, I go digital. And you also say here, with another super chat, Switch, I go all physical since Nintendo games hold value, and I plan to keep my Switch stuff forever since the Switch is my all-time favorite console now. I mean, yeah, I think the logic that you're putting out here, Rashdom, it makes sense, right? Single player games, I think it does make sense for a lot of people. Not a lot of people. I got to stop using the term a lot. But it makes sense, I think, for anybody who still considers physical media to maybe buy their single player games physically. Because I think for a lot of people, a big factor here and a big benefit of buying games physically is you can resell them, you know? Like they still have some value where you can make some money back off of your purchase when you're finished with it. Even if it's a while from now, right? Even if you just let it sit on your shelf for like a year or two, you can still at some point sell that game. And sometimes games go up in value. And that's what you're talking about here with Nintendo's games. Nintendo's games stays, their value, they hold their value. So going physical with Nintendo makes the most sense. But I find what you're saying here about going digital with, like with multiplayer games. I do have some digital games, certainly. And most of the ones that I have digital, they are those multiplayer games. So I guess I kind of am in that same boat to a degree. But Rashdom, thank you for the super chats, man. And Poopy Snoopy says here with another super chat, Fable will do okay with Fable fans on Xbox and PC. Microsoft obviously were never really taking it seriously when they gave it to the developer of an arcade racing team. Ooh. Well, I mean, you do kind of speak to something here that I found kind of interesting. Let me read it to you. So I did cover this in my video, but just so everybody's on the same page, it says Fable has been delayed to 2026 for a few different reasons, according to rumors circulating online. But the delay may not be all bad news for PlayStation 5 owners, which is such a crazy sentence Well-known Xbox leaker Ecstasis reported in a new video that one of their sources who informed them about a possible delay for the new entry in the series at the end of last month, they said Fable has been delayed to next year for a few reasons, which include technical issues caused by the Forza engine that powers the game that has been created for racing titles. Additional development time was required to make some other adjustments to the game, including gameplay adjustments and the pace of progression improvements, as apparently gameplay in one of its first forms was considered not very fun. While it wouldn't have been a proper Fable game without a delay caused by technical issues, the comments on gameplay are certainly more concerning, so hopefully the additional development time will help in this regard. While this unnamed source said that Fable hasn't been delayed specifically due to the development of the PS5 or Nintendo Switch 2 ports, a simultaneous console multi-platform launch is within the realms of possibility. This is according to well-known insider Nate Drake, or Nate the Hate, as the game was apparently scheduled to launch on other consoles 1 year after PC and Xbox. It's definitely possible for Fable to launch on all consoles and PC at the same time now that it's coming in 2026. So yeah, I gotta ask you guys. For those who saw the Fable pre-alpha gameplay that was dropped yesterday, or if you watched my video earlier and you were watching the footage in the background, I did put that footage there. What are we thinking? Because the more I watched it, the more and getting this report, I'm starting to think that honestly, Poopy Snoopy, like what you're saying here, this could become, I don't want to say a problem, but I guess what I'm really trying to say here is Fable could be more underwhelming than people think. And I'm not saying that as like, that's what I want to see. I want to see Fable fail and I want to see it flop. Actually, no, I want to see this game do well just because it's been in development for so long. And I think it looks like visually it looks good, man. Like the world looks good, and it seems like Playground. It seems like they're doing overall a good job, but I do wonder if like the gameplay itself and specifically the combat loop. I don't know, dude. That combat was looking not that great. Not that great. Poopy Snooper, you're saying that leaker for Fable says he found out in January, but only spoke about it after they themselves already delayed the game. LOL, BS from him. It could be. But here's the one thing, Poopy Snoopy. Here's the one thing, because I was on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, and I saw people kind of pointing this out about Ecstasis, where it's like, you're just now saying it. Supposedly, you heard about it a month ago, but now you're saying it. The reason why I still believe this person is because, dude, they were the first person, and I think the only person to say, hey, Forza Horizon 5 is coming to PlayStation. And the Game Awards happened, and there was never any announcement, and people were like, you're wrong, dude. You were wrong. You're not a good source. A month later, it is announced for PS5. So we do have to take it with a grain of salt. We're covering a rumor here, right, from multiple insiders. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. Don't assume it's 100% true. But that, to me, is why I actually am leaning on the side of believing this, because we're talking about the same person who correctly told us that Forza Horizon 5 is going to get announced for PS5, and it really looked like he was going to be wrong until he turned out to be 100% correct. And he was the only one that was 100% correct about that. So it almost makes me wonder if he has some kind of source inside of Playground Games, because if you think about what he's saying here, it's quite specific. Like, he's saying that the game was delayed for technical reasons, like they're having some engine trouble, which also makes sense, but is still concerning, because it's like, bro, how could you possibly be having engine trouble after all this time? Like, that is concerning, where it's like, are we going to see a situation where it's like this game engine is just not really compatible with the game we're trying to make? Like, it's not compatible with this type, like this racing game engine is really not compatible with trying to make an open world fantasy RPG. That to me is concerning. The less concerning part, or well, I guess it depends on who you ask. Maybe the more concerning part is that the rumor is claiming that the gameplay, like they just straight up said that the first gameplay loop that they established was considered not very fun. We do have to keep in mind that we are talking about a studio that has only made racing games. I believe in them. I think Playground Games is an amazing studio, but even I can't deny that this is what we're looking at. If they come out with Fable and it's like, it's not very good. Like, it looks amazing, but it's just not a very good fantasy RPG. Or maybe the combat or something is like really bad or something along those lines. I can't say I would be shocked. I would be disappointed. But I wouldn't be shocked because it's like, well, they've only ever made racing games. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm just saying it's like it's going to be their first time ever making anything remotely like this, and they're swinging for the fences, dude. That's the interesting thing to me about Fable and why it catches my attention, because they're swinging for the fences on this one, and I applaud that. You know, I would like to see them knock it out of the park, but I don't know, that pre-alpha gameplay I saw yesterday, it doesn't look. I'm more enamored with the overall presentation of the game. I'm enamored with, wow, this does look very good. It looks crisp. It looks bright. It looks, you know, the world looks alive. It's just every time they showed combat, I'm like, oh, it looks not. It looks rough, man. Like it looks very, very stiff. And I watched it. I watched it like 10 times over because I'm trying to think like, hold on, just take a closer look. And the more I looked at it, the more I'm like, that doesn't look good, man. I'm a little worried. Just a little bit. But maybe, I don't know, maybe a game like Fable, maybe at the end of the day, it's like it could have bad gameplay, or not gameplay, but bad combat, but it's okay because that's not why people are playing the game. I don't know. Poopy Snoopy with another super chat says, if it's got kart racing, at least that'll be good. Is that an expectation? Are people expecting kart racing? The hammer combat looked rough. Yeah, I noticed that. And look, they say it's pre-alpha. So it's like, I'm not trying to doom and gloom. And I know it's like the fear, uncertainty, and the doubt, but it's just one of the things I saw people pointing out, and I'm making a bit of a left turn here. Okay, I'm making a bit of an abrupt left turn suddenly, but I just have to point this out. I saw some people highlighting that, you know, there's been a lot of criticism put towards Insomniac Games and Wolverine specifically because of how long since the time it was announced to where we are now it's been since we've heard or seen anything of this game, and like, when's it coming out, right? And some of the same people were kind of caught in 4K, I guess you could say. Basically, once the delay was announced for Fable, being like, this is cool, man. Like, let them cook, you know, give them more time, let them take as much time as they need. And that's kind of what I mean, where it's like, this is how I know we're in weird territory right now. We're in very strange territory where, like, yeah, it's okay to be very critical towards Wolverine. Now, granted, and this is important, granted, they did announce a change in director. But if you've been paying very close attention to the development of Fable, you also know they've had a couple of changes as well. There's been a few things going on, and that's normal. To be honest, like, I'm not going to harp on that because I think that's kind of normal for big AAA games. There's a lot of moving parts, and There are definitely changes, and not every, things don't really go according to plan. You ask any AAA game developer that, they'll tell you that. But I just think the energy that's out here right now is weird, where it's like it's okay to be very critical towards a Sony game that was announced too early in 2021. But you can't really have that same energy, the doubt, the concern. I mean, I do see straight up hate, which is normal. You see that with everything, but you can't really have that same energy towards this Xbox game that's, from a property that there's an expectation behind it from a studio that's never made a game like this before. I just think that's strange, man. I think it's strange, and I don't understand why people get so defensive with stuff like this, where it's like the game was delayed, and there are now rumors that it was delayed due to technical reasons and maybe some issues with the gameplay loop. If we had the same thing happen for Wolverine right now, how would people be behaving? I don't know why I said it like that. How would they be reacting, right? If we got news that Wolverine has been internally delayed into 2026 due to technical issues, and the first gameplay loop was not very fun, I think people would be crushing it right now, dude. I think that they would be dragging it. And I don't know. I guess I just wanted to point this out because it's something I absolutely noticed, and I think it's a little bit unfair. I do think people, again, I do see the hatred that comes out of people on the internet with stuff like this, where it's like, okay, it's not all that. Like, we can calm down a little bit. Doesn't have to be all that. The double standard is because Sony studios are talented. They have no excuses. That would help explain it. I will say that is an actual, I would say, valid explanation, albeit it still makes it kind of not fair. But yeah, the expectation could just simply be higher. Am I even interested in playing Fable? You suggested yesterday your stubbornness doesn't allow you to enjoy games outside of a narrow subset of genres. Fable I'm actually interested in. Yeah. I'm not too familiar with Fable, so this would really be like my first time really getting into it, or trying to anyway. And that's why I actually am paying close attention to what's going on right now, because I actually really like Playground Games. Like, even when I was being really, really critical towards Xbox in like 2021 and 2022, when they were still kind of getting their stuff together, I always said that Playground Games is their best studio. Like, hands down. They did the best work for Microsoft. They still do the best work for Microsoft, in my opinion. And the Forza Horizon games are truly just that good, right? Like, they've really earned their place. And I'm more interested in Playground Games than I am even Fable. Like, this game could be called something else, and I would be just as interested, because I want to know what Playground Games can do outside of the racing genre. And that's why I said I wouldn't be like shocked per se if Fable comes out and it's like it's kind of lacking in a few areas. It's not really as good as people thought it would be. I would be disappointed, because it's like, damn, that's not what I was hoping for, but it kind of makes sense given the studio that made it, and it's their first time making a game like this. But yeah, I am wondering now if this does mean it's going to be a day one PS5 game, because if Fable is a day one PS5 game, I can tell you I will, unless it like is a disaster train wreck, which I don't think it will be. Like, unless it comes out in like the state of Cyberpunk or something, I'll buy it day one. Yeah, I'll buy it day one. I'll play it. And I'll, I would hope it would be good, because the world looks interesting, man. Graphically the game looks good. We need to see more gameplay. Like, they've been I noticed, I'll be honest with you, I get the sense that they're afraid to show extended gameplay of Fable. I really get that feeling. And I understand. I understand why. Because if it's their first time making a game like this, if they're not, if the confidence isn't 100%, yeah, I mean, if they show extended gameplay of any kind and it fails to look as good as people would hope a game that's been in development for this long looks, it's not going to be good. But um, Poopy Snoopy, you're saying we probably wouldn't expect Polyphony Digital to make a good God of War game out of the gate either. So you can see how they'd struggle. Yeah, I mean, that is actually a good example. I think that's a great example. Like, yeah, dude, if Polyphony Digital was making like a God of War game, I'm not gonna lie, I'd be straight up scared. I'd be terrified. What I've seen of Fable so far, I don't feel scared or terrified. I just feel like it's hard to determine if there's going to be really weak, if there's going to be certain areas, critical points of the game that are very weak, and that weakness comes from they never made something like this before. This is their first time. It's trial by fire. You know what I mean? But you think I'm not going to like Fable? Um, I I don't know. I mean, it's maybe I would play it and I wouldn't like it, and I'd be like, I was wrong about this. You know, I don't know why I was excited for it, but you think it's Game Pass? The standard, the expectations are lower. It's obvious. I mean, this to me gets into territory that I've existed in for a very long time. And I haven't talked much about it. At least it feels like I haven't really talked that much about it, but it gets into territory I think that maybe now is worth kind of re-entering, right? Where putting aside all of the hot takes and all of the lunacy, that's what I'll call it because that's what it looks like from what I can tell, you know, of the internet of fanboys and console wars and content wars. One of the things that I have said for a very long period of time, and you want to talk about like maintaining the same energy, it is that I do not believe Microsoft produces games that are on the same level as Sony does. And something changed, right? What changed is, well, the conversation isn't so much about the quality of the games. And I don't know if quality is even the right word, right? Maybe there's a better word to use, but I think about just levels, right? If if something like God of War Ragnarok, right? If something like God of War Ragnarok or Forza, dude, I almost said Forza Forbidden West, bro. Oh my god, that is cursed. I don't know how I almost said that. Something like Forza Forbidden West. Let me back this up a little bit. If something like Horizon Forbidden West or God of War Ragnarok, if those games are looked at as like a 9 or a 10, then you think about something like Avowed, right? Something like Avowed, something like maybe even Fable coming up. I'm trying to point out games that are already out, like Avowed or Indiana Jones potentially, right? And you got to, I think the question is like, well, are those games on the same level? I mean, are these games really going to hold that kind of water? Are they going to be 9s or 10s? And I think that what Microsoft basically did, they found a solution to the problem that was not the expected solution, but a solution nonetheless, where they said, all right, listen, we can't make a game like The Last of Us Part 2. So let's not even try. Let's just buy as many studios as we can. And the more studios we have, the higher the chances that we'll just have good games. They don't have to be the best games. They don't have to be 10 out of 10 blockbuster games, but they just have to be good games, right? And I think that works for them. But I still think it remains true that, like, dude, yeah, you're not going to get a game like The Last of Us Part 2 from Microsoft, even if they have 40 studios. You're just not. And I think that's still kind of the strength that Sony has, that not even the strength. I think that's the wrong word. That I would say that is the edge that Sony still has, that Microsoft as of right now still has not overtaken or been able to match fully. Because I do see, like, people will say, look, Indiana Jones was an amazing game. And it's like, yeah, but, you know, is it really like that good? I mean, is it on that level? And then we get into, we're entering territory, and this is why I don't enter this territory that often anymore, where it's subjective, right? At this point, I can only offer my opinion. And when people go deeper into this conversation, they get kind of arrogant about it. Not you guys, but I just mean the deeper people tend to go in these conversations, and trust me, it's everywhere on the internet. People get kind of arrogant about it, where it's like, no, I'm going to tell you. And it's like, well, sure, I guess, but it's still just your opinion at the end of the day, you know? And so in my humble opinion, I still believe that Microsoft has not delivered games that match a lot of the titles or are on the same level as a lot of the titles that Sony has released. I'm not saying they haven't released good games. I'm not saying they don't have games that are worth playing. It's obviously the opposite of that. They're releasing their games on PlayStation now, so clearly a lot of their games are going to be worth playing. But I think this is where there's still this kind of gap between Microsoft and Sony, regardless of how many studios one has versus the other. And that gap is that Sony can still turn to Microsoft and be like, oh, you have Doom. That's great. You have Indiana Jones. You have Hellblade. You have Avowed. That's great. And I guess, you know, again, these games that eventually, or in some cases immediately, are coming to PlayStation. But I think Sony's still like, well, do you guys have anything like God of War? Do you have anything like Ghost of Tsushima even? You know, like, and I guess maybe something like Indiana Jones could be comparable to, no, I don't even know. I still don't, I don't get that sense. So I feel like there is a difference here. I think there is a difference. And I think people still kind of recognize that difference. I think to Sony, there's still a difference. But, you know, this is why it all comes back to the conversation around Fable, where it's like, is the question I'm asking, is Fable going to be that game? Yeah, and that's true. I know. You're right. You're absolutely correct. You're saying, considering I rarely play any of these games for myself, my opinion doesn't hold the weight or validity it could if you actually had the firsthand experience. You are correct about that, and that is my own fault, right? Like, that's why I'm making it abundantly clear that it's just my opinion based off of my observations, not even my firsthand experience. I don't feel confident, and this is why I'm not wording it in a hyperbolic way, where I don't feel confident in saying, let me replace the word confident with, I don't feel as though I could be arrogant enough, maybe old MBG or younger MBG, I should say, was to be like, yeah, dude, everything Sony releases just smashes those games. Like, I know for a fact, without playing Avowed, that it doesn't hold a candle. It's not going to hold a candle to something like, you know, Death Stranding or whatever. I mean, they're two vastly different games, so that it almost sounds like a nonsensical statement to begin with. But it's stuff like that where it's like, it's based off of my observations, you know? Like Indiana Jones, how does Indiana Jones compare to Uncharted 4? just based off of my observation, I'm going to say most people are going to look at that and be like, Uncharted 4 is better. Like, significantly. But then again, I mean, BMed saying Indiana Jones is nothing like Uncharted. So I'm only making that comparison because Uncharted was inspired by Indiana Jones. From a gameplay perspective, they could be, yeah. I mean, it could be night and day. I agree. Okay. I agree. And I've been thinking about this. You're probably correct. Poopy Snoopy says Fable will be just another third-party game on PlayStation. Therefore, the people who want it, that's where we are now. Microsoft just wants money, not 9s or 10s. Yeah, I think that's a good way to. I think if they can get the 9s or 10s, they would be happy. Certainly, it would help them. And then you're saying it's subjective. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is my favorite game this generation. It is, yeah, and that's why, like, I made it clear that I don't veer into this territory too much anymore because I do believe it gets too toxic too quickly. And I think, and I know this, it's not that I think, I know this, people like definitive takes. They like the brashness of, I'm here to tell you. So again, it reminds me of the Crackdown 3 days. It's like, I'm here to tell you that Death Stranding 2 alone, or like Ghost of Yotei alone, takes out anything Microsoft puts out this year. And it's like, I understand why people, and then, that gets a whole certain group of people worked up where it's like, no, like, that is incorrect. You are wrong. Look at all these games. They're all good games. Some of them are even great games to us. We get them in Game Pass. Microsoft is like the best publisher. And it just becomes like it feels like it turns into an argument where it's like, nobody's winning this argument. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think that there is an argument here where it's just like, bro, all I can say at this point is that what has my interest, what has piqued my interest with Fable, and this is important because this is just for me. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody else out there. For just me alone, what has piqued my interest about Fable is it seems like Microsoft's real attempt, and I went through this with Hellblade, and I saw where that went. That is a game I did play, and experienced firsthand. But Fable, I think most people would agree with me on this. Fable seems to me like it's Microsoft's real attempt at, like, we are looking to make a AAA fantasy RPG banger. Like, something that's real. I mean, this is coming from our most coveted studio, our most, highest rated studio. We want what they're doing with the Forza games, getting like 92s and stuff, and again 9s and 10s. That's what they're doing with the racing games with Forza Horizon. We want to see if we can get them to do that for a different genre, and it makes sense. The logic is there. Yeah, if they can do it, if you could do it with one game genre, why can't you do it with the other? Obviously, it's very complex, but that's why Fable piques my interest, because it's like, could this be the one? Right? Like that one game where it's like, hey man, you remember the way people reacted when Horizon Zero Dawn came out? And it's funny because it's like people kind of, I think they were like trying to rewrite history or whatever and making it sound like nobody liked Horizon Zero Dawn, when it's like, no, dude, people loved Horizon Zero Dawn. But like, could this be that moment for Microsoft? I don't know. We'll find out. But that's why I find these reports fascinating. I find them fascinating because I feel like, how much truth is there to what we're hearing? But got a couple more super chats here. Sorry to keep you guys waiting. Novinzer, you're saying the Xbox is still a shooter box, plain and simple. Is it? I don't know. I'm not sure, dude. I would have to look at what are the most played games on Xbox. I mean, the truth is that Microsoft, when it comes to the IPs that they own and the developers they own, I mean, I do feel like there is truth to what you're saying, where it's like, yeah, you got Doom, you got Call of Duty, you got Halo. Yeah, I mean, it does feel like it still kind of holds that title of like the shooter box. But yeah, but at the same time, I also think like, well, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, Fable, Avowed. It's like, well, I don't know that you could. I don't know that I can put Xbox in a box. This is how we know. Now we know. Now we know why they're doing the marketing of everything's an Xbox. Yeah, I mean, Wolfenstein, Quake. Yeah, I don't know that I could agree with this. I do think that if you're I'll put it this way. If you're somebody who got into Xbox at any point in your life because of shooters, that is still applicable. Like, it is still a shooter box. Like, if you came here for shooters, you're going to get more than you ever have from us, right? Like, that is still applicable. But I don't know that I agree that we can just relegate it to it's just the shooter box. That's what it is. I do think that the purchase of Bethesda and Activision Blizzard King gets them out of that. I do believe that. But yeah, they got a lot of shooters now. It is kind of crazy when you think about it, like how many like well-established IPs that are shooters that now are under the Microsoft banner. Kind of nuts. Kind of nuts. But yeah, I mean, these are games that they were always on PlayStation. They're likely going to remain on PlayStation. It's funny. Somebody said yesterday, they were like, yeah, Microsoft's just going to go multi-platform for now, but give it enough time and they're going to flip it again. And they're going to, once they get everybody on board with these games, they're going to make them exclusive again. Like, there's something so nefarious about that. I don't think that'll ever happen, but it's just funny to imagine. Pragmatic Hat with 2 super chats says basically all of Microsoft Studios are trash, and they're gonna have to buy success. Epic made the original Gears. Sony owns the developers of Halo. Look at Xbox 360 successful exclusives: Mass Effect, EA, BioShock, Take-Two, Fallout 3, Bethesda. Pragmatic Hat, I feel like there were points where I felt exactly the same way. And I still, like, the troubling part of this conversation, not troubling, but the friction that arises with this take is all of Microsoft Studios are trash and they're going to have to buy success. I mean, that is what happened. Yes, you are not wrong. Like, no matter what anybody tells you, that is accurate. Even Microsoft had to admit that themselves. So you are not wrong. But I think the problem with it, or again, where the friction is people will tell you that, well, that's not true now. They own these studios and they're now Xbox studios. They're now Microsoft studios. So when that successful shooter comes out or that successful RPG comes out, that's Microsoft. And it really, I guess, depends on, again, this is where it does become, the subjective part of it is how long do you want to view it that way after the purchase is made? They announced they're making the purchase. Why are you doing that? Because we can't make it ourselves. Oh, that's weak. Okay. The purchase happens. Maybe people still latch on to that. They still say, well, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, sure, you own them now, but I remember going through this with Starfield. Literally everything in business is buying success. It is. Yes. And that's the thing. It's like we kind of have to establish that even Sony has had to do this. Like we need to, at a base level, accept that, yes, Sony bought studios too, but there is a difference. And this difference to me is the important one that is worth highlighting. And that is that we can't look at studios like Sucker Punch and Naughty Dog and Guerrilla Games and say, well, hey, if you're upset at what Microsoft's doing with Bethesda and taking the credit for that, and what they're doing with Activision Blizzard and taking the credit for that, you can't be, because, hey, Sony bought those 3 studios as well. They're not the same. The only thing that is the same is both companies spent money to acquire these studios. But all it takes is just half a second to realize that, oh, no, they're completely different. You know what I mean? Like, Sony did not buy Naughty Dog after Uncharted, after The Last of Us. Sony didn't buy Guerrilla after Horizon. They didn't buy Sucker Punch after Ghost of Tsushima. Sony bought these studios before any of that potential was realized. And so, yeah, there is a layer of credit that Sony gets that Microsoft simply doesn't right now, that goes beyond just the black and white of it's just a business exchange. And that, to me, is important to highlight if we're trying to understand potentially the trajectory of where things are going in terms of these studios and these games. So it's like, yeah, we can't really say they're exactly the same, because they're not. We can say that Microsoft had to make the purchases they did because they couldn't make it work. They couldn't figure it out. We can say that Sony made the purchases they did because they also needed to figure out a way to make it work. And they did. It's all a means to an end, ultimately. And it's up to each person to decide for themselves how you view the means and the end, right? Like, if you look at what Sony has done and you say, I respect that more and I think that's the better way, I'm in agreement with that. I agree. That what they did with their studios is what drew me to their platform. If you say, I don't like the way Microsoft did it, it seemed like it was just a very rapid, quick, like, we just need to win now, like right now. And we need to just drop the bag to make that happen. Yeah, that's literally what they did. Doesn't mean you have to dislike it, right? It doesn't mean that. To me, it speaks to the fanboy wars and the console war stuff, where it's like, it's why, to me, it is cringe to see. Like, I remember when Bethesda was being purchased and when Activision Blizzard was being purchased, there were certain subsects of, I'm going to say subsections. When I say it the other way, it sounds like I'm saying something else. Certain subsections of Xbox fans and fanboys that it's like you were absolutely aggressively cheering on exclusivity. Like, aggressively. And to me, those are the people that have continued to ruin the conversations. They've ruined the conversations then. They continue to ruin the conversations now. Because it's like, dude, now, let me guess. Now that Microsoft has decided that nothing's going to be exclusive, that's the better way, right? That's the better way. And if you ask these guys, they'll all tell you the same thing. Yeah, it is. And this, to me, is what... I'm not saying you can't change. I'm not saying you shouldn't change. I'm not saying if you decide, you know what, I had a bad take, or, that maybe that was the... I was on the wrong side there. I'm not saying you can't do that. But it's like, when you do it when you do it in the exact alignment with the company that you were, that you've cheered on for so long, when you do it in the exact alignment with no friction whatsoever, what is that? Like, how else is that supposed to look? It only looks like one thing. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you're going to just be okay with anything they do. Anything they do, you're going to say, this is great. I cheer this on. And I understand people look at me and they're like, well, don't you have any self-awareness, MBG? What about you? And it's like, what about me? Have you listened to my content? Have you actually studied it? And I'm not trying to go too deep into that rabbit hole. But the fact of the matter is, there have been many things that I've lost my mind over that Sony has done. Right? The other day, I had to clip myself. Think about this. I had to clip myself. Do you know why I had to clip myself? Because I realized that if I don't do it, nobody else is going to. The only people who are willing to clip me are the ones who are willing to skew something a certain way. They want to make people believe that I, MBG, and the audience I have here, we only see things one way. That we are in that black and white zone where we're not actually having discussions. There is no nuance. There is nothing. And certainly, we would never call out PlayStation fanboys or call out Sony themselves. We would never do that. And it's interesting because in my last stream, and I know I'm going way off the rails and on a diatribe, but it happens. In my last stream, I had a whole section where I was talking about how I have encountered some PlayStation fanboys who believe that based off of everything we've seen from Sony, they're going to abandon the PC space. They're going to stop releasing games for PC. They're going to walk away from it. And they're just completely against what Sony's doing on PC. And I had a whole little rant I did where I was saying that I think this is a crazy take. And I think they're completely wrong. And I think that the evidence is literally right in front of us right now. Like, I think it's a little bit delusional to think that. And the whole point I'm trying to get at here, and the reason why, by the way, I pivoted to this right after everything I just said about certain individuals out there that were cheering on exclusivity for Microsoft, and now suddenly they're not. And suddenly exclusivity is the enemy, and it's bad. I'm pivoting to this suddenly because it's proof. It's literal proof that the people you are hearing this stuff from and the people who are talking about this are completely fake. They're completely fake, and they're just doing what they're doing for their own selfish whatever, right? You think any of these people took that clip or decided, you know what? Hey, look, it turns out he's calling out some PlayStation fanboys. Turns out he's actually saying something about PC and PC gaming when it comes to PlayStation that is actually in favor of PC players. No, they don't. They didn't. I had to do it myself. And I waited. I'm like, I'm waiting. Whenever you guys want to do your thing, because anytime I have something critical to say about Microsoft, anytime I have something critical to say about Xbox, they're on it like flies on shit. Anything else, they're blind and deaf, apparently. I'm saying this right now because of what I just said about ABK, because of what I just said about Microsoft, right? About how there are people who, when we try to have these conversations, they try to ruin the conversation by just making it sound like, listen, if you are against Microsoft doing this, then you're just against everything that's good for gaming. Listen, if you are on board with the way Sony's doing things, then it's bad for gaming. It's all bad for gaming. And it's one or the other. There can be no in between. It's strange, man. It's strange to see that, like, this is how this is how people want to engage with these conversations on the internet, where it's got to be one way or the other, when the reality is there's actually a lot more to be extracted from it. There's a lot more. But Chris, that's not true. You're saying you feel like all we do now is nag on Xbox and everything related to Xbox when they're actually putting out games now. It's just not relevant anymore. I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with that, Chris, because it's like, dude, we do talk about Xbox, but it's funny to me that it's like, notice how nobody says anything. Like, this is what gets me. This is what gets me. Nobody says anything when I'm sitting here talking positively about Xbox. Nobody says anything. Nobody says, why are you talking about Xbox? Nobody says, can you stop talking? I mean, well, maybe I guess a few people say, can you stop talking about Xbox? But generally speaking, like, hardly anybody's saying anything. But as soon as we become critical, it's a problem. You know? And it's like, I don't understand. Like, and I'll tell you, it's become a problem because of the way these people that I'm referring to have tried to skew not only me, but the image of all PlayStation fans. It's kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts, dude. Does PlayStation hiring talented developers qualify as buying success? Yeah. Yeah, it does. No, I want to make it clear. Sony has purchased their success. If Sony didn't purchase studios and hire this talent, or even sign like second party exclusivity deals, if they didn't do this, PlayStation wouldn't be where it is right now. I've never denied that, or at least I would never deny that, right? Like, that's a reality. But when you compare, again, it's a matter of, I guess you could say, it's almost like the same dish being made by two different people, but the way in which they go about prepping it and cooking it and getting it into its final form is just completely opposite. And it's like, you know, and most people, I think, would end up agreeing that, like, well, the way this person did it tastes a little bit better, you know, tastes just a little bit better. I don't know. I don't know anymore. When it comes to the whole conversation, Sony, Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation, I mean, it is pretty much dead in the water, ultimately. I mean, I know I'm kind of like keeping it alive by entertaining some of this stuff, but Poopy Snoopy, you're saying Astrobot, with all of its 10s and awards, didn't do much for its sales. Well, so far, most people just didn't want to play that type of game on PlayStation. Well, I will have you know, Poopy Snoopy, and this is the good news. This is the good news for Astrobot, or anybody who enjoyed Astrobot. If you're worried about its sales, it's still hanging on in the top 10, apparently. It's proving to have some legs. So, yeah, I don't think it's at like 4 or 5 million sold, but it seems to me like Astrobot could end up hitting 2.5 million, maybe one day even 3 over time, which, I mean, again, it's not my place to determine whether that's successful or not, because I'm not the one who funded the game and determined how many copies it's got to sell. What I can say is it's not doing God of War numbers. It's not doing Horizon numbers. But my only hope is that Sony's happy with it. And I'll tell you right now, if there's one thing I do know about Sony, that game could have sold 500,000 copies. The fact that it won Game of the Year, Sony's happy about that. I don't think Sony puts much of a price on that. I think Sony would be willing to lose money on a game if that game won Game of the Year. I actually believe that. That's the way Sony kind of operates. Novinzer, you're saying I work with a lot of Xbox guys. They only play shooters. Well, I guess my question would be the people you're working with that play shooters, do they, I mean, were they there the whole time with Xbox, or did they maybe, is it from the 360 era? I would assume, because I think the 360 era is when people viewed Xbox as like they're the shooter box. I think that's when it happened. And maybe, I don't know, maybe some people are still just there, you know? That's why I said earlier, dude, like, if you bought Xbox because it was a shooter box, it is still the shooter box. It's not all it is, but yeah, it's still that. Just because of the sheer amount of shooters they have. Poopy Snoopy, you're saying, isn't most of PlayStation's success down to third-party games? GTA, Fortnite, FIFA, Call of Duty, and whatever else the casuals are playing. We can't have morals being fanboys of billion and trillion-dollar companies. LOL. What timeline are we in? They will do what it takes. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, man. And this is what I'm trying to say, where it's like, when it comes to the fanboy conversations, it's like you can't be a fanboy anymore. I mean, like you can't, because it's like, where are you gonna go? I mean, what narrative as a fanboy is going to, like, do you think you're gonna win with? Because there is no narrative to win with. This is why I went on that rant that I just did, Poopy Snoopy, where I said I had to literally clip myself. Because that's the truth. The truth is, if people saw, and I'm going to continue to do it, by the way, because clearly those people are not going to. If people saw that, like, oh, MBG and or maybe his audience, they kind of have this view on this one take that a lot of people look at and they're like, that's completely wrong. Well, did you hear the other thing that was said? Did you hear that part? What about this other topic and this other take? Did you hear that? No, you didn't? Oh, okay. Yeah, because once you do, you probably will see it differently. I don't know. That's my view of it anyway. But yeah, I definitely got way off the rails with what we were originally talking about. Circling all the way back around. We're going to circle all the way back around. Fable. Fable's been delayed to 2026. It seems like it's going... Well, we don't know for sure, but it seems like it is going to come to PlayStation 5. We're getting a rumor that it's going to, and maybe even Switch 2 if it can run on it. So, you know, the rumors that we're hearing about the technical issues with it, the gameplay loop maybe not being that strong. I don't know, man. We're going to have to just wait until they're ready to show more raw gameplay. Personally, I'm not too impressed with what I've seen. From a visual perspective, I'm impressed. From a presentation perspective, I think it's looking good. The gameplay, the combat, I will say, the combat of Fable is what looks very not great and not good. But yeah, ultimately for me, Fable represents that game where I want to know if, Hellblade was the title that I thought this is going to be a game. Like, Hellblade's supposed to be the game that's going to compete with Naughty Dog. Couldn't have been more wrong about that. Now I'm curious to see if Fable's going to be that one game that's like, see, we can do it too. Maybe that's unfair of me, but that's what's drawing me into it. So notice how I don't have the same expectations for something like State of Decay 3. But to close out this specific topic, it's worth noting that Craig Duncan, the head of Xbox Studios, he said, well, let me just read the article for you. More long-standing flagship Xbox franchises will release on PS5, according to first-party boss Craig Duncan, who was speaking as part of an official podcast earlier this week. During the broadcast, the ex-Rare head took the opportunity to announce a delay to Playground Games' upcoming Fable revival, and also spoke a little bit about the employer's ambitions to make more titles multi-format. It's good for gamers, and it's good for our studios, he pointed out. Our studios make amazing games, and we want to give those games a chance to reach the broadest audience possible. I just think it's good for gamers who have our games to have our games reach more places. Everyone who makes a game wants to reach as many players as possible. So I love that we can give our studios that opportunity. So nothing too major here, but he's just kind of reiterating what we already knew and what has been said, I think, a few times over at this point, that Microsoft now views putting their games on PlayStation 5 as well as Switch as a good thing. And obviously, yeah, I think what Craig Duncan is saying here, this is what developers are going to feel. They're going to feel like, yeah, we want to put our game in as many places as possible to have the widest possible reach to achieve potentially the most success. They want the biggest audience possible. Obviously, that's what every video game developer wants. They want as many people playing their game as possible. The one thing I will say is that, and look, this is just me, again, kind of maybe falling into a bit of a trap here, but what I'm about to say is just simply reactionary to what I've seen. And it's good now. Right? Like now it's good for players. Right? What about the last 20 plus years? And I get it. I understand. They just want to make more money. Things change. Maybe I'm bitter. It's not so much that I'm bitter as much as it's just, why is it good now when Microsoft wanted to sell 200 million Xbox Ones? I'm just saying. It's good now because it has to be. Because it's the only way forward for them. And I get it. I just think, again, let me make this crystal clear. I have no problem with what Craig Duncan is saying. I don't even have a problem with what Microsoft is doing. My problem is with a certain subsection of people that they want to take that, what was just said, and they want to weaponize it against PlayStation and PlayStation fans and people who are still okay with, if not exclusivity, timed exclusivity. Just saying, man. It's weird. But yeah, this is, I imagine, just how it's going to be going forward. Everybody at Microsoft, we're going to continue to get interviews. We're going to continue to get shows. Phil Spencer just said last week, you're going to see the logos in their shows. So this is it. At some point, the conversation around this is going to die if it isn't already on its last few breaths here, because Microsoft is just going to be a third-party publisher, and they're going to be treated like that, and they're going to be talked about like that. So I think we're almost there. Poopy Snoopy, you're saying, State of Decay 3 should be challenging Naughty Dog. I would love to see how that works. Just the type of game that State of Decay is, I don't think that's possible, but yeah, go for it, Undead Labs. Do it. Challenge Naughty Dog. And you say business has changed for them. Makes sense. Well, ultimately, I think I said this before and I will say it again. I think everybody's going to win at the end of the day with this. Except for like people who just exclusively play on Xbox, but I don't really think many people do that anymore. Maybe that'll just be a niche audience. But I think generally speaking, yeah, everybody's going to win from this. I don't see a downside per se. Maybe there is some fear of lack of competition, but we'll see. It's a possibility, but I don't know that that's likely. Sony still has to do good for their own business, for their own sake. Poopy Snoopy again with a super chat says, dude, if things change for Sony in 10 years and they do something similar, they'll be saying the same thing. Everyone deserves to play PlayStation games. No, exactly. That's my point, dude. Right? Is like, yeah, it's going to be good now. Right? I think I've staked my claim here, right? Where it's like, when it comes to PlayStation exclusivity, and I know people don't like this stance, but it's just me trying to be honest and reasonable. And it's that, listen, Sony, if you want to do exclusives, I understand why. In fact, there's ample evidence in front of us that would show you, like, this is why we're going to do exclusives. Just like Nintendo's still doing them. If Xbox changed their mind tomorrow and said, actually, we still want to do exclusives, I would understand why. I would. I wouldn't. It would be kind of jarring to see that 180, but I would understand. Like, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Hold on. How are exclusive Xbox players losing? They have lost nothing. Yeah, okay. I guess a better way to say that is they're not gaining anything either. Really. Like, I don't know. I see the charts of, like, on one side it's just the green boxes, and on the other side it's the green boxes and the blue boxes. And it's like, but I don't know, that's where Game Pass comes in. But anyway, I'm just trying to say here that ultimately, if Sony wants to do exclusivity, I'm not against that, because I do think exclusives, like, the big problem I have surrounding this entire conversation, and I've had this problem for quite some time now, is the disingenuous nature of people just pretending things weren't a way. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if Sony does the same thing that Microsoft is doing, yeah, I should see droves of PlayStation fans saying, I think exclusivity is the way to go, and I think you're making a big mistake. I say that because that's what PlayStation fans have been advocating for literally years. That's why I'm saying we're not seeing that from Xbox players. Most of them. Some of them. But most of them, they're just like, nah, dude, this is better. And I'm like, why are you saying that now? Why didn't you say that when Titanfall was coming out? Why didn't you say it when Titanfall came out? You definitely weren't saying this when Titanfall came out. And I get it. I too was, and I will admit, and this is where I will not do what they're doing, where if Sony does eventually, they're like, we're going everything everywhere, I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that I wasn't on board with exclusivity, that I didn't cheer on exclusivity. I absolutely did. And I still am now. And I understand why they do it. And I understand why people want to cheer it on, to a degree anyway. But it doesn't mean I am incapable of understanding why they would go a different direction. Doesn't mean I would fully agree with it. Doesn't mean I would absolutely have my concerns about, like, bro, what's going to happen to the console? You know, what's going to happen to this thing that you spent decades building up, trying to give an identity to convince people it's worth buying? What's going to happen to that? Maybe by the time if they end up doing that, it won't matter to them. But I'm just saying, man, like, we're in this weird zone where there's a lot of manipulation going on across the board regarding these conversations. And I'm just trying to get down to, like, even when I first came back to PlayStation with PS4 and games like God of War and games like Horizon and games like, you know, Bloodborne and etc., people were asking me the question. I mean, people were asking me the question literally that month. What would Sony have to do to get you to leave them? This, you know, to go somewhere else. And my answer then is exactly the same now. And it's like, stop making these incredible games that I just want more of. That I'm like playing and I'm like, holy shit, these are literally some of the best games I've ever played in my life. Like, you stop doing that, and I don't see much of a reason to stick around. Now I have more investment now that time has went on with trophies and physical games and investing in the ecosystem, but that still stands, dude. Like, that's what would do it. It wouldn't be them saying, We want more people to play this game. Well, how dare you? I'm not supporting you anymore. See, that's what bothers me about everything that's going on right now and where I find myself in this position where it's like people don't acknowledge that. They refuse to acknowledge that. And who knows, maybe I'll do my own digging if I really feel like it. I don't know that I want to go that far out of my way. I don't know that it would be worth it, but I've considered like going back. I mean, like years, and finding myself saying these things earnestly. Like I've considered doing it to just show people like this is like the answer has been the same the entire time. It's been the same the entire time. It's never not been something else. Wait, I think I said that wrong. It's never not. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Do you think because of your traumatic experience from switching from Xbox to PlayStation, it may have clouded your perspective on the state of and direction of the industry? I'm sorry. It's funny to call it. It's a traumatic experience. I wouldn't say it was traumatic. Actually, I would say it was good. You know, it was a fun time, truly. Has it clouded my? I mean, dude, I don't know. I guess you could tell me, right? I feel like the answer to that's going to be no. The only thing that's, listen, if you want to know what's clouding me, like what's getting hazy in front of me and hurting my visibility, it's the fact that like there are like two warring factions right now. And I mean, they're at war, dude. And that I know I got made fun of for saying this as if it's not real. Like, I'm not talking about literal war. That's what's funny to me. Is like I see people like they're like, "Oh, you don't know what war is really like." Like, dude, I'm clearly being like hyperbolic and exaggerating here. Like, I'm using exaggeratory terminology. I don't even know if exaggeratory is a word. But I'm saying like there are two groups of people that are going at each other's throats right now, every day, all day. And those two groups are hardcore fucking, I mean, well, there is a third group here, but I'll speak to that in a moment. Hardcore Xbox players, you know, like the ones who have been here for a long time and are just like, again, Microsoft is the way. And hardcore PlayStation fans. I mean, fucking like MBG, it's not your fault. It's just, dude, like nobody's winning. That's it. That's it ends there. That's the most I could say about it. That's not the most I could say about it, but that's all that should be said about it. Is nobody here, nobody engaged in that is winning except the people raking in the money. And that's what it boils down to. That's why I was saying there's a third chaotic group of people that are opportunists. Grifters is what they're usually called, but we'll just be polite and call them opportunists. And those people understand we can just rake in money from this stupidity. Yeah, we can. And so they do. And so it's just a completely toxic, you know, even if it started as something that was toxic and not really that great, it really turned into something much worse, you know? I don't even pay attention to Nintendo that much to know. But anyway, I think I've just like gone on maybe a bit too long here with this. It's just, I get it, man. It's the nature of the beast. This is how people play the game. You know, it's all about the fanboy wars and the console wars, and like, the truth of the matter is, man, I can't identify at the end of the day who is going to win and how that happens. Because from what I can see, everybody's getting theirs. Everybody's getting theirs. Nobody's like actively losing out on something. And I think that's why this has become a maybe redundant and practically irrelevant conversation, but something that I frequently find at my doorstep. But anyway, we'll just end it there. I do want to move on and talk about the WB situation before we move on to the members lounge for a little bit. If it's now all about games to everyone, wouldn't it make sense to talk more about the games? And that would thus require you to try more games that we're all referencing and dialoguing about. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I see that's the thing, man. Like I've talked about it. I have my own personal like kind of checklist of like games I want to play and comfort games that I play frequently. But then I also look, speaking of opportunities, like yeah, I do kind of see like, oh, every new game that comes out is a potential opportunity, and maybe I'm missing out on certain opportunities. And yeah, it is. I understand the whole joke of like you're playing Twitter and you're not playing games. It's like I do play games. Trust me, I do. But yes, there's also a truth that I expose myself to Twitter and to YouTube and comments, and I end up spending too much time highlighting those things, rather than the actual gaming stuff itself. And that's on me. Figuratively literal, you're saying, not saying PC ports will stop, but Shu did refer to Lost Soul Aside as a second party game. First party would be Helldivers 2. Yeah, I mean, I talked about Lost Soul Aside dropping day one on PC, and yeah, I understand that from a technical point of view, it's like that's a second party game, and I understand why. It's also a China Hero Project game, and we know that most gamers in China are playing on PC, so I understand that. But I just think again, it's my own weakness, man. Like I get too caught up in playing the game of predict the future. MBG, come on, everybody's doing it. Predict the future and place your bets, so that way, if you lose, we can all dogpile whoever lost. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I need to stop doing that because it's like that's not necessary. Like that, it's literally not necessary for me to have the conversations that I want to have on the channel, but I end up kind of caving into that somewhat frequently. But yeah, like when it comes to, I mean, the truth is when it comes to PlayStation and PC, all that really needs to be said is they're still supporting PC as of now, and I don't know what happens next. Let's find out. That's it. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why I end up caving into playing those games, because I realize that's all that there is to actually be said. What platform is that game on? If you're talking about Lost Soul Aside is, I think it's PS5 and PC right now. Oh, and I forgot to read Poopy Snoopy. He said they seem to have moved on. Are you referencing? I think you're referencing when I was talking about the subsection of Xbox fans that like won't talk about the fact that they liked exclusivity. Well, hey man, I guess the only question that needs to be asked is asked, not asked, is if the same thing were to happen with PlayStation, if we were to just move on, everybody going to be cool with that? Everybody just going to be chill about that and be like, oh, okay. Mm. I wish I could tell you that it's that simple, but it's not. Because the reality and the truth is, dude, that like even today, like I see people throwing stuff up from like years ago to try to win arguments, and I'm like, okay, it's a fruitless endeavor, at least on my end. Anyway, let's move on and talk about the WB stuff because a lot of just straight up catastrophe, absolute catastrophe for WB Games and what's going on with their studios and some canceled a canceled game and some studios being closed. Very sad. Very sad. Sorry, one of my cats just like aggressively opened my door and scared me. It was Luna. All right, so the situation that has occurred with WB Games, they just announced yesterday that they are closing 3 studios. The 3 studios that they are closing are Monolith, which is easily the biggest studio and probably the most devastating closure out of the 3. The other studio is Player First Games, who made Multiverses, and Multiverses was just recently announced to be shutting down, and WB San Diego. WB San Diego was a studio that was tasked with making mobile games, free-to-play mobile games, so most people probably didn't even know about that studio. But on top of this, the AAA Wonder Woman game was canceled. And something else that's making the rounds, we did talk about this a little bit earlier, but it's worth kind of bringing up again. It actually absolutely is worth bringing up again. The Nemesis system. Monolith created this system. They called it the Nemesis system. It was in the Shadow of Mordor game and the Shadow of War game, and it was highly praised because there's nothing out there quite like it. WB patented it. And so on top of all of this bad news, the studio closing, the game being canceled, we're also finding out that the Nemesis system is going to remain patented by WB Games until the year 2036, and they can choose to renew it. And if they choose to renew it, it's safe to say we're never going to see that system in any other game. So, yeah, man, let's try to unpack what went wrong with WB Games. Now, they did put out a statement and they made it clear that they're going to continue with DC games. They're going to continue with Harry Potter. They're going to continue with Mortal Kombat and Game of Thrones. They highlighted these intellectual properties to make it clear that they're still going to have studios that work on games based on these properties. Not surprising, right? But we just saw what happened with Rocksteady. We saw that there were like a lot of layoffs with Rocksteady after the Kill the Justice League situation. And now this happens. I mean, when we kind of look at WB Games, there is something that I think we can identify that explains what led to this. And it's actually not too dissimilar from what we saw with Sony, but maybe just much more volatile for them, where they chased the games as a service. They chased the live service trend, and they got burned very badly for it. But I would also say it's the leadership who, I think the head of WB Games just got fired or left the company, but clearly was like told to leave. I don't know his name, but that just recently happened prior to this announcement. The craziest thing, and I'll never forget this. I mean, I'll probably forget it at some point, but I'm not going to forget it anytime soon, I should say. The craziest thing about WB Games that made me realize, oh my God, they don't know what they're doing. Like, whoever is in charge there has no idea what they're doing, at least in my opinion, was when it was announced that Hogwarts Legacy, single-player game that people loved, sold like 24, 25 million copies and like even outsold Call of Duty. And they were like, yeah, that's not good enough. That's the moment I knew, oh, you guys are done. You guys are done. Like, if you can't see how that is the biggest win ever for you guys, you're cooked. And I think it just goes to show the mindset that they had. It's not enough. It's never enough. More, more, more. I think that explains why they chased the live service so aggressively. And when it comes to the Wonder Woman game specifically, we did hear rumors that earlier in development, they were trying to make a live service Wonder Woman game. They were trying to have live service elements. And I'm like, you can't be this dumb. Like, you can't be this dumb. Hold on, guys. I just think it's crazy to me that they can't see. I understand the cost of making big single player games. I understand the cost is rising. I understand the AAA industry is volatile, but you can't convince me that they didn't make a boatload of money off of 25 million copies of Hogwarts Legacy sold at pretty much full price. I'm pretty sure they did make a boatload of money, and I'm pretty sure they just determined, like, well, we're not happy with that because we can't keep making that money every quarter, every 6 months. No, Navinzer, I had to shut my door. And I think that's the problem, man. I think the problem is that whoever was running the ship at WB Games, they couldn't identify like what was truly working for them and successful for them. All they could see is live service, live service. And I get it. You look at these live service games, it's a similar story with what we saw with Jim Ryan and PlayStation, where we look at the live service games and they're probably jealous. Like, let's be honest, they're probably envious of look at how much money they're making. Look at how much money they're making. We're making good money doing what we're doing, but we want that. And that's what the shareholders are going to see. And that's what they're going to want. So let's get a jump on it. Let's do it. And it's just completely short-sighted. It's completely short-sighted and foolish because it's like when it's another telltale or cautionary tale, of here's why you can't triple down and go all in with live service when you are managing many studios, many teams, and have a lot of different IP. This is why you can't do that. They tried to do it with multiverses, didn't work. They tried to, again, if I recall correctly, even with the Shadow of War game when that came out like 2017, I think it was, even that game got kind of deeply ridiculed because they tried to put loot boxes in it, bro. You remember that? You remember when these companies were trying to put loot boxes in single player games? Just disgusting behavior where it's like, what are you doing? And I'm tired of the greed, man. Like, I know it sounds so cliche and it's just something that's maybe a bit over redundant these days, but I am tired of the greed because it's just how many times do we have to see something blow up and then see the aftermath of games flopping, millions, hundreds of millions down the drain, and people getting fired and losing their jobs until these executives wake up and realize like that approach, the we're just going to go all in tunnel vision and we're going to make it work. That approach never works. It just simply doesn't work. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because I feel like this is truly a devastating blow where Monolith was an incredible team, dude. And if you played Shadow of Mordor, what you knew about Monolith is these guys know how to adapt a property like the Lord of the Rings and make an incredible single player game with a truly unique and very fun gameplay mechanic called the Nemesis system. Like, how do you shut that team down, dude? Because of your crappy decision making. It's nonsense, man. Yeah, and Rocksteady, that whole situation with Kill the Justice League, where it's going to be a live service game, like, what are you doing? It's giving me like the same vibes as like Blue Point on a live service God of War. Like, what are we doing here, people? How clueless do you have to be to not realize this is a huge mistake? MBG investors love layoffs. It's very sad. It's just sad, man. I mean, when we talk about what's next for WB, I'll be honest with you, man. I don't have much hope. I don't. I'm not rooting against them because I just, what I would like to see is them realize that you do still have some good properties and you have a lot of potential here, at least with for sure with Rocksteady. I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I just don't know that I'm going to be able to view WB Games the same at this point, knowing they just killed Monolith, dude, like that, like without even hesitating. Like, I'm just shocked. I mean, listen, I want to make something understood here, and this is important for me to say because I'm going on and on about how disgusted I am by this behavior. I want to make it known that I still am on the outside looking in. I don't know what the development environment was like for Wonder Woman. I don't know if that game's development was a complete train wreck and maybe the team just did, like, maybe they were not doing well. I just find that hard to believe given their reputation. And I actually did see this. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Yeah, so canceled Wonder Woman PS5 game was gorgeous and expansive. We'll never get to play Shadow of Mordor. Mordor, I don't know. Why do I say words weird sometimes? Shadow of Mordor, developer Monolith's take on Wonder Woman, because the game has been canceled and the studio was shut down, but there's been an outpouring of enthusiasm aimed at the project in the aftermath. Writing on X, consultant Gail Simone said that the game was gorgeous and expansive in a thread of posts. She enthused. It was beautiful to look at. I'm not going to give details for a number of reasons, but every effort was made to make this not just a great game, but a great Wonder Woman game, a showpiece epic. She then went on to praise the studio, calling it a dream team of developers. Everyone who worked on it brought their A game, programmers, artists, designers, everyone. I don't know that I've ever worked with a team that cared more about making sure the end product was perfect. She continued that Monolith had embedded Wonder Woman and DC lore into every aspect of the experience and described working on it as a dream come true. She concluded soberly, sometimes you give it your all and it doesn't work out. So, obviously we're limited in how much we can know here when it comes to the details, but I don't know. It is sad. It is sad to see that, like, this is the outcome. There's a lot of information out there to read. I guess, yeah. I guess this is part of that. I guess what I'm really trying to say is we're not going to really truly know because WB's not going to come out and say this is why we shut them down. This is why we canceled it and why we shut them down. It does seem like maybe the game was actually not in a terrible state. I don't know, just kind of based off of this, but I don't know, man. Well, rest in peace, Monolith. I think the most difficult thing is going to be knowing that team, I think for sure could have went on to make more great single player games, but I don't know. We'll see. I guess I want to ask you guys, how do you feel about WB Games now? How do you feel about this situation? Do you feel like, I mean, do you feel like you're just kind of done with WB Games? Do you have any optimism that they're going to be able to get it together, and that I guess at this point it would be like sometime next generation, but they're going to be able to kind of come back like with Hogwarts Legacy 2, maybe Rocksteady is going to make a Batman Beyond game or something. I mean, there is Mortal Kombat. Maybe there could be like another Injustice game potentially. Because the game was rebooted and likely wasn't going anywhere years away from release. You know, you know what? You're right. I actually kind of forgot that we did learn it was rebooted. That's what makes me wonder, like, were they tasked with making a live service Wonder Woman game and it just wasn't working and they had to reboot it? I am in as much pain as WB, MBG. Have you ever dropped a 45-pound weight on your foot? Oh, man. No, luckily I never have, but yeah, that'll mess your foot up for sure. I'm sorry to hear that, Whiskey Gaming. I hope you recover quickly. There's a rumored Arkham Asylum remake. Yeah. There's like two rumors right now. There's an Arkham Asylum remake, and there's a rumor that there's going to be a Batman Beyond trilogy or something. They refuse to remake Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. Well, they have a lot of IP to pull from, man. They do. They have quite a bit to pull from. And so, you know, I don't want to say there's no hope. I think there is hope. I think that they can still produce some great games, but they gotta know that the games as a service angle for them just isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. That's my read on it anyway. Wonder Woman was described as a single-player action game. That's how it was described, but I swear, man, if I recall correctly, there was like a leak or something, or a rumor that claimed that like they were basically being asked to find a way to implement live service. I don't know. It is what it is. Like, to be honest, I didn't really care too much about the Wonder Woman game. I just feel bad that Monolith and the Nemesis system are basically gone. Like the Wonder Woman game, whatever. I would have been interested when we saw it, and I probably would have bought it if it was good, but it's just knowing that, like, just like that, yeah, this studio's done, and this really interesting, unique mechanic that definitely could have been a major selling point for any of their future games gone. It's like, all right, well, geez. Feels like it's just kind of BS, you know? A Flash game. I wonder what a Flash game would be like. Well, guys, we are 2 minutes away from hitting the 3-hour mark. So I want to end the stream at the 3-hour mark so we can go to the members lounge. So you basically have like 30 seconds. If you have any more super chats, any more memberships, we are sitting at 30 members. Thank you guys so much for that. But to all of my channel members, I'm going to be booting up a members lounge right after the stream ends. So I want to see you guys over there. We'll hang out for a little bit and talk. Yeah, I guess I'm just going to abruptly, I want to try to like end it at the 3-hour mark. Now, I don't know if I can get it on the dot, but I did cover everything I wanted to talk about. I went on a bit of a unnecessary rant, I would say, midway through the stream, which happens sometimes. But, you know, it's just going to be the nature of I got to just distance myself from the online chatter. Until I do that, I'm going to continue to probably make those mistakes. In my opinion, it's a mistake. Some people probably like it, but either way, guys, thank you so much for joining me today and for hanging out. If you enjoyed the stream as you're heading out, make sure you hit that like button. I want to extend a big thank you to everybody who dropped any membership gifts, to anybody who dropped any super chats or direct donations. Thank you guys so much for that. I'm only able to do this because you guys make it possible, so I'm extremely grateful for the support that you guys show. And so, again, with that being said, we're going to be heading over to the Members Lounge. If you're not a member, I will catch you tomorrow with another video and a new stream. What do I think about PS Plus for March? Not too thrilled about it. Not too thrilled. But, all right, guys. Hit that like button. To all my members, I'm going to get the Members Lounge spooled up. I'll see you over there. To everybody else, I will catch you tomorrow in the next stream. So, until next time, guys, take care.